Hello, everyone on TikTok. This is our first live stream on the platform. We are having our live discussion today on the Pangburn Discord server. If you want to join us, just search Pangburn Universe Discord. I did put the link in there, but it doesn't look like it allows you guys to click it. But I'm going to make sure we're all.
When are you guys going offline?
I don't know, man.
I was just wondering. Hey, sorry.
You can keep an eye on it and see when we go offline. We're sometimes 4 hours, we're sometimes 2 hours.
All right. It's like I'm bothering Travis today. Oh, it's okay.
I need this. Boom. What up, everybody? Let us know on TikTok what kind of personal experiences you've had with God. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We have a Christian here, Brody, who's going to be sharing his personal experience once we get things fired up here. This is my first time going live on TikTok, so I'm just kind of figuring this out. And of course, we are live on our new Pangburn live channel. Hell yeah. Who's going to be sharing? Okay, just getting a couple more things, and I promise I'll be with you. Discussion on Discord. Then eventually we will add Facebook to this game too, because we have like 50,000 followers on Facebook. So probably do X as well, honestly. Mine as well. Pin message. All right, folks. Rock and roll. I think that's everything. Everyone on Discord, please make sure you have the YouTube stream running on mute, and please do your chatting there if you would. That would be great. Your text chatting. So I want us all to dig into our. Unfortunately, I don't have a past with regards to personal experiences with God. I'm sure there's some people here who have had experiences in the past that they might have attributed to God, but maybe they don't believe that it actually was a God, external of their own mind. But that's what we're going to be talking about here today. Hopefully I'm coming through clear on TikTok. If you guys could just say hello, let me know if you can hear me, get that chat moving. That would be fantastic. Looks like we already have 16 live on TikTok, which is cool. Welcome, everyone. Okay. Last thing to do, share this. It takes a while to set this stuff up, but I'm eventually going to get a software that allows me to just click and play. There we go. All righty.
Yeah, Brody, were we going to share your experience?
No. Moloch, just please stay muted. I always start off with my reading here first. So there's no scientific consensus that a personal God exists or does not exist. Instead, the scientific consensus is that humans possess a number of cognitive and social mechanisms that make belief in personal supernatural agents common and understandable. Whether those experiences correspond to an external reality is generally considered outside the scope of science to a lot of people. Me, based on my epistemic standards, I make correspondence criteria of truth primary, which kind of gives birth to things like empiricism and science as a way of knowing. But I do think eventually, with regards to God, you can become epistemically justified, from a knowledge perspective, to claim to know that there are no gods. One of the reasons I claim that, some people would call me a Gnostic atheist, and by more academic standards, I would just be considered an atheist. But I think the evidence is just so overwhelming that all gods are man-made. And what I mean by that are, narratives, stories, or characters that are mind dependent. I don't believe they exist mind independently. I think we have all the evidence in the world to believe that. And I'm confident enough epistemically to claim there are no gods, and that I know that there are no gods. Now, not all atheists are like that. Not all atheists hold that positive position. There are a lot of atheists out there that hold atheism to mean simply a lack of belief in the proposition that gods or a god exists. And in like we just spoke to Graham Oppie recently, Thomas Panter and I, and he outlined what is true about when it comes to like academic philosophy, what atheism tends to still mean in traditional academic philosophy, in that it is a positive claim that there are no gods. But most atheists, I would say, in the pop atheist world, use atheism to mean a lack of belief in the propositions that gods exist. So I just wanted to outline that first. It looks like we have 44 live on TikTok, and we got some people live on YouTube as well. Welcome, everybody. Make sure you subscribe. We have conversations like this happening every single day, and we're now going to be live on TikTok as well. You can go onto Google. If you can't, click the pinned link that I gave you guys on TikTok, and you can find the Pangburn Universe Discord server. You can just search that up and join our live room right now, and you can come in and engage in the live discussion that's going to take place. So I want to start with what's available with regards to some of the science on the personal experience with God phenomena. And if for those of you who are on TikTok, if you could just smash a like button to make sure, I know you're human, that would be fantastic. Okay. So what seems to be the case is that these experiences people claim to be having with God or have had with God, just for the most part, we don't have any good reason to believe generally that people are lying about these experiences. They are real experiences. So people genuinely report sensed presence, divine love, unity, revelation, voices, visions, conversion, prayer, encounters, near-death experiences, and psychedelic quote-unquote God encounters. Pew finds most Americans believe in God or a universal spirit, and 70% describe themselves as spiritual in some way. There is no single, quote, God spot. Modern neuroscience points to distributed brain networks, attention, self-processing, emotion, memory, body mapping, predictive processing, and meaning making. A 2025 review argues against crude reductionism and against dualist overreach, favoring multi-scale network explanations for this kind of phenomena. Mystical/God experiences can be triggered naturally or chemically. John Hopkins studies found psilocybin can John Hopkins studies found psilocybin can occasion experiences people rate. What is going on with this? That's not a sentence. So psilocybin can occasionally cause people to have what they describe as spiritually meaningful experiences. And sometimes those experiences are attributed to God. Reports occur both spontaneously and under psychedelics. These kinds of experiences that people attribute to God often improve well-being in some measurable way, even if the evidence of that is personal testimony. Many people report lasting increases in meaning, reduced fear of death, less depression, anxiety, more connectedness, and changed values after mystical, psychedelic, or near-death experiences. John Hopkins reports these experiences are linked to self-reported mental health benefits. But psychological mechanisms matter if we want to really understand what's going on. So there's expectation, culture, suggestibility, prior belief, trauma, meditation, sleep paralysis, grief, temporal lobe instability, dopamine salient systems, and social reinforcement can shape the content. The famous God helmet style claims are contested. One study found sensed presence was better predicted by suggestibility than weak magnetic stimulation. Near-death experiences are profound but not settled evidence of an afterlife, of course. We don't really have to get into that. So personal God experiences are powerful evidence that humans can have deep experiences of God or ultimate reality. They are not by themselves strong proof that God objectively exists. The honest position is take the experience seriously, study its effects on well-being, but don't let intensity masquerade as certainty. So that's kind of my finishing to finish off the reading and early message today. I have something that keeps, when I'm trying to read, pop up from uh, TikTok, and I really want to figure out how to change that. But anyways, this is new. So first, Brody, let's talk about your personal experience with God. You kind of teased us a little bit during one of our God debate episodes, but why don't you take us through it all? And imagine we are, hearing this for the first time.
Yeah. My name's Brody. I grew up in a Christian house, so I have a deeply religious background. So my early education was done at a private Christian school. My church was like my second home. I actually grew up at a mega church, which is fun in its own way. Um, so I had the whole youth group experience, but I was also a very rebellious young person. I knew how I was expected to act in church, but I didn't really have like an experience with God until I was in high school. My long story short, my parents got a divorce in 2016 when I was in my sophomore year of high school. This led to a lot of really negative mental and social uh, outcomes for me. I became very isolated. I uh, experienced a lot of depression and anxiety in my life, and I was just generally very unhappy and very unsocial. You guys probably wouldn't recognize me if you met me in that time period. And what followed was three encounters with God, is what I would describe them as. Or I can say three confirmations that not only is God real, but He is aware of me, He is communicating with me, and that He had something for me, like a purpose or a plan. Um, so the first of these experiences was actually a dream that I had. It was a very vivid dream where I essentially was uh, it was like my state or my depression was put into an image, like a movie, and it was like I was swimming through this dark murky water, and there was this like bright blinding beam of light that came down, and it came down like a rope. And when I woke up, I felt very strongly like this was a message from God, that He had been trying to offer me a way out. Um, but it could have been some indigestion, so I didn't really think too much about it. And then my second confirmation that I got was I was on a Zoom call with some other Christians from around the world, and I only knew one person on that call. And I had my camera off, and I had my name was just like my username. And in the middle of the call, someone said I had a word for Brody, except he didn't say Brody. He said my first name, and my name wasn't on my username or anything. And he gave me a word that he said was from the Lord. This might be Christianese. We just call it giving somebody a word, which is like God told me something to tell you. And his word was basically to stop searching for peace in the wrong places. And he's like, I don't know if there's anybody with this name who's even in this call, but I just feel like I really needed to say that. And while he was saying that, I was like loading up my my little dab rig that I had, which was probably me looking for peace in the wrong places. So that was like confirmation number 2, and then the big one, which was confirmation number 3, was at a winter retreat that I went to. It was a Christian youth retreat, and there was a volunteer that was there that I'd never met before, and he came up to me and said the same thing. I got a word for you. I don't know if this will apply to you. And he kind of read my mail. Like he called out a bunch of things that I was doing, and he also mentioned like my parents' divorce. He mentioned that I'd been drinking a lot and getting high and trying to do all these things to make myself happy. And as far as I can tell, he had no way of knowing any of this stuff. And that really shook me. And I basically asked him, like, what do I need to do? And he's like, you need to accept Jesus. And I'm like, I grew up in church. Of course, I've already accepted Jesus. What else is there to do? And he said, no, you need to really take this seriously. Just being in church doesn't make you a Christian. So that night I cried out to God, I think for the first time in my life, like genuinely, and asked him for help. And
How did you, what exactly did you say? Do you remember?
To the volunteer or to God?
To God.
Oh, it said, God, if you're real, I need your help. I'll give you my life, be my Lord and Savior, something along those lines. And yeah, that's about it. Just like help me. If you help me, I will take this so seriously. I'll be, you can have my life. Basically, you can be Lord of my life. And I felt this like warmth fill my body. I felt this overwhelming like peace and joy, like the life had been restored to me. And then the real miracle was that after all of this, going home, I just felt like a completely different person. I threw away a bunch of my junk that I was into. I cut out a lot of bad things from my life, and I didn't have urges to go back to them. Not to say I'm perfect. There's still a lot of things that God is working out in my life, but it was like a night and day difference, and that was like the big turning point for me. So that's kind of, and as far as God experiences, I actually do think I experience God daily, and I think He speaks to me consistently, still to this day. So.
And how does God speak to you consistently in your day to day?
Mainly through His Word, through reading the Bible, and also through people that are in my life.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so can we go through the first one? You mentioned the rope light.
Yeah.
Right? So can you just go like give the goods on that, because I want to go through this like this first one in detail, and we'll go through each of these experiences.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, I don't remember what happened that day or like the situation surrounding the dream. I just remember the dream very clearly. And I was swimming, but I could breathe, but like through this like murky black water. I couldn't barely see like my hand in front of my face. And there was like this beam of light that came down, and I actually ignored it and kept swimming. And then another one came down, and I ignored it and I kept swimming. And the third time it came down like even brighter than before. And it was like, and that's when I realized like, oh, I can grab this. This is like a rope. But I didn't grab it. regretfully. I would have loved to see what would have happened if I would have, but I just kind of ignored it, and then that was, to me, like the meaning from that was like God has been giving me all these chances to turn to Him and to pull me out, and I've been ignoring them, and so that kind of like I feel like after that I was primed to listen to whatever message was going to come my way.
Okay. And what do you think? What leads you to believe most that this was something to do with God?
I think probably my understanding of that I had at the time of the way that the world worked. Like I guess this wasn't the thing that made me believe in God. I feel like this is like a confirmation that the God I'd said I'd believed in was like really trying to get my attention, if that makes sense. I think maybe if I grew up in a different country, I would have probably called it a different name. If I'm just being genuine here.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
So yeah, like while you were in the experience, did you feel as though it was a godly experience, or was that upon reflection after?
Hard to say, man. I'd probably not. I probably just thought I've had some crazy dreams in the past, but for whatever reason, like this is the one that I remember the most. It really stuck with me. Like it felt very personal to me.
Okay. Okay. And were you dreaming?
Yeah, I was asleep.
Okay. Okay. I just sometimes some people will say, they're not sure, even though they were asleep, that they might have woken up and this was happening. But okay, this was you were asleep for this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then how about the second one? Can we go through that one in a little more detail?
Yeah, that's the one where I was in a Zoom call with about 30 people I didn't know, and I had my nameplate and my microphone and my camera off, and I was just listening in, and someone had a word for my specific name, and the word was to stop searching for peace in the wrong places. And I was in the middle of doing some very indulging in some substances at the time, which I knew was searching for peace in the wrong places. So that was like that spoke to me, and I was like, how did this guy know my name? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you ever think about like what are some other reasons this person would could have known your name?
There are some possibilities. It could be that the friend who invited me shared my name with that person and said,
Okay.
"Hey, I know you like giving words. I think my friend here would really need one right now. This is his name." That's a possibility.
And do you feel like that would be like deception if that occurred?
That's a great question. Borderline, yes. I think it's very common, especially in my specific strain and denomination of Christianity, to want to give words to people. It's like a cultural thing.
Right.
And if there's like a new guest, like you want to swarm them and be the person that gives like the godly word that makes them cry and all that stuff. And I would feel deceived if someone said I heard this from God, but in reality they heard it from my friend Kevin. You know?
Yeah, because I mean, wouldn't you say, I don't know if you agree with this or not, isn't it most likely the case that something like that happened as opposed to this being an experience with God? Or as you think about this now, do you think like experiences with God just aren't that rare if you're open to them, or if maybe you need them?
I more of the second one. I don't think experiences are with God are rare if you're open to them. I do think this was here's kind of my theology on it. I think it could be the case that somebody finds a loophole, like a way to make it seem like they're talking for God, but God in his love and grace still uses that experience to speak to somebody. So it's not an either or for me. I still chalk this up as like God using something, whether deception or Verity to get my attention, and it worked.
Would you
Question.
claim that this is evidence or proof of the existence of God, these experiences?
Evidence, yes. Proof, no.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Casey. What were you going to ask?
Because Brody, were you saying earlier that God speaks to you through the people around you, right? So might that have been an explanation that you would give if even if your friend had told this group leader that that would be God speaking through your friend and then through the leader?
Yep, that's spot on.
Okay. So at that point, would you still feel deceived?
No, I think that that could have been the way that God wanted to speak to me, was by putting it on my friend Kevin's heart, having Kevin share it with this guy, and then this guy talking to me. It would just be a little bit more extra steps than I originally considered, but I think that I would still give God the credit for that.
How do we falsify that then? It seems like you've created this field where even if it were deception, deception could be a means of God speaking to me. So, I mean, at that point, it seems to me anything goes.
When you say falsify, you mean like how can we prove it wrong? Like what evidence can we give against it?
Right.
I don't think this specific experience is falsifiable. Personally, yeah, that's not a
Oh,
very
sure.
satisfying
Maybe
answer.
not just that experience, but the rule of thumb where God is using other people to speak to you or whomever is open to him.
Got you. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like I could hear from anybody and just say like that was God that told me that. God used that person. Generally, the rule of thumb is to compare it against your authority. So if I was a Catholic, I would compare it against both the Bible and Christian tradition, and if it contradicts, then that's how you'd falsify it. I'm not a Catholic, so I'd compare it strictly against the Word of God. Does what this person says contradict what God has already revealed? If so, I can be sure that this was not from God. That's the Christian way to falsify it.
Gotcha. You said you can be sure it's not from God, and then you said evidence, not necessarily proof. So you think that it's just leaning towards the evidence of God when it does fall in line with whatever the church or the Bible says regarding the advice?
Yeah, I think that kind of experience is more expected under the hypothesis that God exists than the hypothesis that he doesn't. So that's why I'd call it evidence.
Maybe presuming that, if God exists, this is what we would, versus if God doesn't exist, natural explanations can't account for this. I would disagree, but
Yeah, that's fair. So just to kind of get this
yeah.
out there, last time we talked about this, the reason I've been so hesitant to share my experience is because I genuinely think this is very ineffective evidence when it comes to like convincing atheists or agnostics that God exists. I think that there actually is a naturalistic explanation for all of my experiences. This is very personal to me, but I know you guys wanted to hear it, so
Yeah,
I'm
and
okay with
well,
just saying like
that
this is
that
sure you can come up with other explanations.
that's the topic tonight. I hope it'll probably happen, like talking about whether God does actually exist or not. But we're
Hmm.
just talking about the experiences, I think, of a perceived God.
Yeah.
So
Now, Brody, would you, I don't know if you speculate about this, but when it comes to like, say, someone like my life where, I'm sitting here claiming that I know that gods don't exist, what I think you're describing can be explained quite well using cognitive science modeling and our understanding of mind dependent experiences and what can happen there. I would equate what you talked about in this having this personal experience to the UFO and UAP phenomena when people get abducted or they have these experiences that they think might have a mind independent explanation to them, but really it's just our own minds creating these experiences or drawing lines from things like maybe friends handing over our name and then a word being given to us, kind of like what happens when people go and visit a medium, or like, I think all of this stuff fits in that same category. So what I'm curious about is, do you believe someone like me is like, I have this landscape of opportunity in front of me to interact with a God, or let's say the Christian God, and it's just that I'm not open enough or something to it, and that's why I'm not having these kinds of experiences and attributing them to God like you do? What am I getting wrong as an atheist, when it comes to these supposed experiences?
You specifically, Travis, I think I'd have to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
I think you are, for how open-minded you are, I think you have it pretty much settled in your mind that whenever an experience like this is shared, that the naturalist explanation is more likely by default, because I don't think you subscribe to, as far as I know, supernatural events taking place.
Yeah, I mean, every
So-
time someone goes to explain like the supernatural, I always think like, well, we have the natural world. We are beings in the natural world. And then someone claims that there is something super separate from the natural world. I don't see any good reason to believe that such a thing exists. Just like I don't see any good reason to believe that like the quote unquote non-physical exists, for example. So I'm in this state of like, if someone utters that concept, supernatural, I don't really know what that means or could mean based on my epistemic standards, based on how I understand the world. I mean, I've had these kinds of experiences that are like when Jordan Peterson and I talked on my first podcast I dropped. We talked a lot about awe and religious experiences that might be attributed to supernatural, but then and I, as a musician and also as an actor, as a stage actor, I've had these kinds of experiences that are like outside the ordinary, transcending, and like I'm stepping into some kind of flow state that is that is unlike anything else. And that's why I present the proposition to Jordan Peterson that I think that this is why I attribute religiosity to the arts, because it's a particular kind of narrative. It has pageantry, all of the kind of stuff you see in the arts, but it also is believed, by many to have some relation outside of art, some relation to reality in a big way, fundamental reality. But when we talk about the personal experience realm specifically, if Jordan describes his kind of personal experiences that give him awe in like a religious sense, in like a God sense, it sounds very similar, not in content, but in feeling, to what I experience in these other non-religious cases. And someone like Matt Dillahunty will say that, he was practicing to be a pastor or a preacher, and he used to have these experiences as well during that time, and he would attribute them to God. But when he became an atheist, he would still continue to have these kinds of experiences, but he wouldn't attribute them to God anymore. So he thinks the thing that changed was simply, he no longer accepted the proposition that gods exist, and then that caused him to stop necessarily attributing these things or finding a pathway as to how this must be connected to God. Then he started understanding it as like, mind dependent phenomena. that we are capable of having.
Yeah, and I think atheists absolutely can have what I would call those like touches with the divine. Like you're like rubbing shoulders with something that's supernatural. I know that you would not describe it that way. I absolutely would. I don't think that beauty is a subjective thing. I don't think that morality is a subjective thing. We've had at length conversations about these things. I think somebody like you or many people in this call who have their mind made up that these things are just results of the physical. It doesn't really matter how many of these experiences God could throw your way, as long as you keep classifying them as, well, there's a natural explanation for them. That's why it's hard for me to answer what would convince somebody like you. I think I was very open to the idea that these were supernatural experiences. So
Yeah.
there's a reason why I used that lens to describe them, or to see them.
Yeah. I guess I feel as though I am open to these experiences, but something I would say about this: if God actually does exist, I would assume that God would have the power to communicate with me in a way, or to have an experience with me in a way that would cause me to attribute this experience to God. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Not necessarily. I think, I mean, it's a very, I'd have to think a lot more on that.
Because but don't you get at what I'm saying? Like that we're
Like
talking
God, if
about, we're
God can
talking
do
about the
anything, He
Christian
would know what
God.
it would take to convince you.
Yeah, we're talking about the Christian God that can apparently do or say or utter or manifest anything, right? So surely God could change the mind of Travis Pangburn, just like, oh, we lost Brody. Oh, there he is. Yeah, no worries. Surely God could change the mind of Travis Pangburn by way of personal experience with God. And maybe someone might give the argument, well, God's not going to do that because he doesn't want to violate your free will or whatever. But
yeah, so okay, here's what
yeah.
I'm getting at, right? I think that if God's goal was to prove to Travis that he exists, he could absolutely no doubt do that. If God's goal is to get Travis to freely love him and freely choose him, I don't know if that is something that God could do.
But but you were in a state of, like, let's say you were in a state of falling away from God at one point, right?
Yeah, I was not walking with God at all.
And that pathway to these personal experiences, do you think it was, partly to do with, like, I know there's the free will element, but is it not also to do with God's ultimate design that you eventually had these personal experiences? Or do you believe that you ultimately had control over that path?
I go back and forth on this, because I hear convincing arguments from Calvinists and I hear convincing arguments from Arminians. So, about the whole predestination and free will kind of conversation.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
kind of
that,
what I'm tugging at. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's. I think it's definitely. I guess the way I would put it is it's absolutely within God's will to make a way for people to be saved and make a way for himself to be known, and that he has made himself able to be known by all people. But he will not override someone's hard heart or rejection of him, for the sake of, like, at least not that I've seen, not frequently. I mean, you can make an argument maybe in the case of like Paul, but
Right.
even Paul wasn't hardened towards God. He was just wrong about the Messiah, until he met him. So,
But does that mean that all people have a hard heart who don't believe in God necessarily?
I think all people without God are blinded. They are they are unable to see, you know, apart from God's grace, the goodness and the majesty of Him, you know, the worthship, like how worthy He is of praise. I think that, yeah, like apart from God, like this is where I get a little bit more Calvinist. I don't think that you can like come to God on your own. I think that God needs to draw you, but at the same time, I think God has drawn all men to Himself, is what Scripture says, and we can choose whether or not to accept or reject that.
I hear that, but
Yeah,
without adding all of that extra stuff, I just
yeah,
want to stick with the hardened heart part, because you're mentioning these three confirmations that you had: the
mm,
dream, your friend, and at camp. And wouldn't, if you're claiming that this was God's grace in the Calvinist-esque way,
Are you?
is he not is he either not limiting your free will or the people's free will who were used to you as confirmation for your belief?
No, I don't think he's limiting their free will, and maybe I misunderstood your point. If your question was like, do all people who reject God have hardened hearts? That's a different question than like, do all people who currently are like far from God have hard hearts? And I would say no to the second one. I think there are, like, you know, Jesus says, my sheep will hear my voice. There's a lot of people who are open to hearing the gospel and open to receiving Christ if the message is shared with them. And this is why we evangelize, you know. So even some people listening
Sure.
right now might have an open heart and ready to receive.
Yep, that's fair. And then one more question. Let's say someone was just as open and like in turmoil and drove away from God, had the same background as you. If they had the same experiences, those same three, like a dream, a friend, and at camp, do
Yeah.
you think that they would necessarily also
That's such a
believe in
hard
Christ?
question. You'd have to say, when you say same experience, you'd have to include all of my experiences because I don't know if I could isolate them like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you ever doubted, Brody, that these experiences are um, directly connected to the Christian God?
No.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And like even right as they're happening, right after, it was just that clear to you. Because although
Oh, no, no.
what
So,
what about
yeah,
like
no.
when your friend might
Right
have?
when they happened,
Oh, okay,
right when
yeah,
they happened, I definitely like when I woke up from that dream, I was like, that was crazy vivid, like personal dream. Like if God was gonna speak to me in a dream, that's probably what it would be like. But I wasn't like sold like that is for sure God speaking to me in a dream. I think it could have been some, you know, at the time, could have been that I had too much sugar before bed or something like that.
right.
But like the confirmation to me, uh, is a mix of you know, the life change that I experienced as a result, and also just like my knowledge of like apologetics and like, you know, evidence for the resurrection and all, you know, all the arguments we'd probably talked about a lot on here. I think that there's a really
Right.
good case to be made that the Christian God is the true one.
So it seemed like you were um well primed, I would say, to attribute this to the Christian God.
Yep.
I'm just thinking that, like, if you weren't well primed, um you know, it as a thought experiment, what are some things we might have you might have attributed this to? I mean, you might have thought like me, like if I had experiences like you had, you know, I would have thought, okay, my buddy gave my name to this person in order to be able to identify me and say this
Hmm.
particular word. You know, the light rope thing. Oh, I just had a cool dream. um yeah, and I mean, if they had a positive effect on my life, then I could be like, yeah, that was, those were interesting experiences that had positive effect on my life. um so it seems to me that you had to be born into being primed towards the Christian God in order for you to attribute these experiences. So that leads me to believe that these experiences don't necessarily need to be attributed to the Christian God.
No, they don't. They don't necessarily need to be attributed to the Christian God. Um, if God is real, He would know Brody's mindset. He would know, like you said, what sort of things I would receive as revelation and how to speak to me in a way that's specific to me. That's why I think like if God were to use these 3 revelations on everybody here in this call, it wouldn't mean squat for a lot of you guys, because I think if I were to ask you, what's more likely, that it was God speaking to you, or the other option is literally anything else, any natural explanation, no matter how, whatever low percent chance it is, it would still be higher than God, and for a lot of people, it wins by default.
Yeah,
Can I
go
ask
ahead,
you
Nate.
something, Brody?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Travis. Sorry. So yeah, what I'm curious about is like it's not presupposing naturalism, but it is using naturalism to say, well, to dream is to hallucinate. To speak about revelations is to speak about delusional, supernatural things that don't exist.
Wait,
And
that's a calling it a delusion though is like already kind of being a presupposing, is it not?
no, if someone told me, like, let's say someone well-to-do, like a scam artist, so someone who is a moral agent who we're not punching down, we're just judging them accurately, and they come across and say, well, I have a revelation that LeBron James is going to win on whatever NBA team he goes to next year. In that small case, I would say, well, this is a perfect time to actually say that, yeah, there is a good time to say that revelations are supernatural bullshit or nonsense.
I think that's a presupposition that you have.
I don't think so. I think, and I don't want to accuse you of participating on the internet, but and I apologize for using the languages too for TikTok and stuff. But also, I would just mention real quick that I don't think it's a presupposition because if you're a biologist and let's say there was this is another hypothetical. Let's say there was something called maybe the alien dinosaur flu, where half of your students believed in alien dinosaurs that actually invented and coded the human genome. You as a biologist wouldn't be presupposing to just be dismissive in the case that when you're talking about biology what biology is. And so I do think some would say that maybe that is the definition of presupposition, but to ask another person to entertain revelations in all cases, when we're talking about philosophy versus testimony or truth versus testimony, like Travis talked about testimony or having some sort of like knowledge passed to you. Those are 2 different things to me.
Well, I never said, accept in all cases. Like I think that's foolishness to accept all revelation as divine revelation, or all revelation as revelation, period. Like I think that there's a lot of people that claim that the world is going to end at this specific time, and 100% of them have been wrong, right? But I think to start, the reason I called it a presupposition is because before you even gave an example, you called it like a delusion. Like I think that any person coming to you with any what they would call revelation in your mind would already be delusional to you. And I don't hold that presupposition. I think that there are some true revelations and there are some that are wacky and made up.
Let's not be delirium phobic, guys.
Yeah, I'm definitely yes, but okay, I'll close on this for just my time here, but I would just say that, um, from my perspective where I sit, thinking about dreams as correlating to reality, something a lot of people might agree on is it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work, and in like a softer sense, um, maybe it is true that dreams are correlating to reality in some sense. But then in what sense is that true? Does that still imply that there's like some dream state that ports over? It to me, it loses the connotation of revelation. So I think maintaining those terms, maintaining the terms of how it's true, is more difficult.
Okay. Wait, are you saying like you don't think it's appropriate to use the word revelation when you're talking about a dream? Trying to make sure I understand you.
So that would be, that would be another way to look at it. Yeah, I would have to explore it more, but I think that would probably be true. That I don't see why a dream entails anything.
Okay. You wouldn't call that a presupposition?
I wouldn't. Again, I haven't moved from my position that a biologist doesn't have to explain biology to biology doubters if they don't want to. I don't think that's presuppositionalism.
Can
Because
we all,
and
can we all agree
just
that we do have presuppositions, though?
yeah, people do have presuppositions, but I could also say that, well, to say just one more soft example, to say that I can see, like let's say it's even in motion. We say I saw my friend Dave the other day. I saw my friends Dave, Sarah, and Zena the other day or something. And so to see someone is to also see in the first place. And so a biologist can explain this down to the level of DNA and even quite a bit about how DNA works. I don't know if somebody was mentioning that earlier, but but I would just I would pull that back up and say that, well, that person's not even presupposing naturalism. They're just saying, well, there's already this very strong explanation, and so what gives someone else the right to explain it a different way?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, maybe this is like close to skeptical theism, or maybe this is just me not having tight enough epistemology. I think that God can absolutely work within the natural. I don't think that there needs to be some mutually exclusive explanations that are given. I think that you could point, if I say God revealed himself to me in a dream, and you say, I can, we have science that can, show exactly where that dream came from. I can, hypothetically show you the exact neurons it fired from. That wouldn't like lead me to believe, oh, then God didn't have an influence on that, or God didn't
But
use
who
that.
thinks, Brody? But who thinks that? You say, I think that God can do that. I think that there's a small, I don't mean to be pulling out the sophomoric tricks, but I think there's a fluffy pink unicorn that sits on every single atom and swings around and dances around. So I'd like to contend then with your hypothesis and what you think, or what we the people think about God intervening in the natural world, and like honestly be like, well, what the fuck is that about?
Well, it's good. So there's a lot of steps you have to take before you get to uh, our biology is able to produce dreams, right? Like there's a lot of steps of how, how is their life, how is their consciousness, how is there something rather than nothing, like how is there anything contingent without a first cause, like all this kind of things. So like I think we're starting on third base here. And we'd have to really, dig in a little bit further, because I think that like you are, I'm not a presuppositionalist, I swear, but I
Yeah,
think
no,
you are
no, no.
presupposing
I didn't mean
a
to.
lot.
I didn't mean to accuse anyone of that. I don't know why I
No, I'm just
invoked
saying,
that
like, what
term in
I'm
the first
giving is
place.
basically a presuppositionalist argument, because I think that like you have to presuppose a lot of things that go against your worldview to even get to the point of saying like, yeah, this is something we would expect. Like, oh really? Like we would expect to see a world with people who think, who have, consciousness, who are able to have dreams in the first place. Like I would want to push back on all of those things that I don't think.
But then why do you get your Tony's up in a jork when you say atheists like
Say that.
presuppose, I don't know, I just made it up. Like atheists presuppose like the naturalistic aspects, because I think you also presuppose the naturalistic aspect, at least in your day-to-day life. The question is there something metaphysical or supernatural above, beyond, or beneath the natural
Or
things? Because
alongside, right? Yeah.
yeah, whatever verb you want to use, I'm just saying there's an extra presupposition there, which
Yeah.
is where the point of conflict. So you have two presuppositions, including the naturalistic one that you seem to have a gripe with the atheists.
My gripe is that is people who say the world is purely natural or purely material, that everything that we experience can be explained through what can be viewed under a microscope or something, to put it very bluntly.
Brody,
Yeah.
the problem is that we do have no good reason, though, like looking at good sound epistemology, we don't have any good reason to believe that there are non-physical things or the supernatural, or you're gonna say that God's a good reason, or these personal experiences might be a good reason. But for someone like me, like I am open to any good reason that could be demonstrated to me, but
Some empirical examples for
but like
so
you're. Mhm.
I mean, so I'm not. I don't feel like I'm sitting in this like closed off state to that. I think what's happening is that human beings create these realms that are mind dependent, these ideas, like the idea of absolutely nothing. I don't think there's any good reason to believe that exists in an absolute sense. I don't think there's any good reason to believe that any absolutes really exist. So it's like, I don't think reality as it's demonstrating itself to us is the problem. I think that what's happening is that these kinds of experience we're having, like you're having dreams, you're having real world experiences that may or may not have been tricks played by friends of yours, and you're attributing them to gods. I don't think the problem is with like good sound epistemic standards born of empiricism and using science as a way of knowing. And there's so far there's really good reasons as to why we don't have scientific modeling for the supernatural, or for the concept of absolute nothing, or for even we haven't modeled consciousness yet scientifically, as a working model in science. Is just because we don't have those demonstrations. And as much as we'd want to go and provide personal testimony and think that maybe that should open that gate up of plausibility, it just isn't enough.
Well, I just think you're using the wrong tool.
Well,
if you're saying I can't find any scientific evidence for the supernatural, think about the sentence you're saying.
Well,
right?
it's not just scientific evidence, right? I also mentioned demonstration, right? We're talking about a consensus of demonstration that can be corroborated. Now you might say like that, well, there are so many people who have claimed to have personal experiences with God, but there are so many people who've claimed to have personal experiences with all kinds of things that you're not going to accept and believe because it hasn't been demonstrated to you, right? So I do think there's like you're, like I said, I think you were primed for this by way of religion, and then I think you attributed this thing to God as opposed to like fairies or something else, because you weren't primed for that. So I think that that's good reason to believe that the thing that caused you to attribute this to God was that cultural priming, not that this necessarily had anything to do with God. And when I look at that entire mixture, I just don't see any good reason that anyone else should think that your experience had anything to do with God. Like I do understand. But I do understand that if I had an experience like yours, and I was, and I had my mind changed, let's say, and I, without being primed for God in my case, and I found the Christian God by way of that experience, I would probably be doing exactly what you're doing, right? Like I would be saying,
Maybe, yeah.
I would be saying like, look, I had this experience. It's hard for me to put it into words, but it changed my conscious state in the direction of, believing that there actually is a Christian God, believing in the supernatural, believing like all of this stuff. But yeah, and actually for that reason, it is often what I bring up as what I think would be the one kind of, I guess, experience. Well, I would say the one thing that would probably have the best chance of convincing me that the Christian God exists is if I had some kind of personal experience like that was strong enough
Yes.
and changed my mind. And I don't know what that would look like. But yeah.
Well, this is why I say from the get-go, I think I don't expect this story to convince anybody. I think it's like, I think personal experience when it comes to these conversations is like the weakest form of evidence you can give, and this is why I was so hesitant to bring it up. I think it's an interesting conversation. I'm glad to talk about it, and I don't regret like talking about it. But like,
Yeah.
I want you to know, like, I completely agree with you when you say like, how could you expect this to change anyone's mind? I don't think this will change anyone's mind. I'm just telling you what caused me to believe, and you're probably right. I was primed with my upbringing and everything to believe this.
It's more of a critique. It's less, I think it's less about, for me, it's less about I know you're not trying to use this as a way to change someone's mind. You would probably prefer other argumentation than appealing to your personal experience. But
yeah,
it's
and like,
it's more about critiquing the entirety of the experience you brought up, and whether or not you have good reason at the end of the day to believe that this had anything to do with a mind independent God, pointing to the priming by way of your religious culture. You even mentioned like some doubt that you might have had relating to whether your friend would have told this other person what your name is, and then this would have had some kind of transcending effect on you in this experience. So yeah, I'm just, we are once we get to the point of you're having these experiences, and you're giving like I guess the reasons you're giving, like you're not demonstrating to me by way of your own experience. Like you're not striking me as someone who's like, this was I'm telling you, Travis, this was an experience like with the Almighty. Like the way you're describing it is like, yeah, and it was like, it was clear to me that it was an experience, and there was a rope light, and it's like it just doesn't, the experience itself just doesn't sound that extraordinary or interesting or that out of, like it just I'm waiting for the eureka moment within your experience that you were like, yes, and that is when I knew it was God. But maybe I'm just expecting more. I don't know.
Well, maybe you're expecting different. I think we expect God to come in the big spectacle, the earthquake, the fire, the lightning, and then we see in the story of Elijah, he comes in a still small voice, just a gentle whisper, and the whisper is much more personal, and it was for me.
I'm not even talking about the booming voice thing. I'm talking about like something that is godly about that experience.
Travis,
what is godly about it? I don't understand what is godly about the experience.
The godliness, I'll say it again, was not the events, but it was the result. It was the radically changed life. You wouldn't recognize me if you talked to me before this.
Yes,
that is the miracle to me.
Why? Okay. So I guess my gripe then would be with that. Why is that change you saw in your life, why is that miraculous? People's lives change all the time by way of the same kinds of experiences you outlined.
That's evidence in the supernatural. If you say people's lives change all the time due to these kinds of experience, that's evidence.
I think that's evidence of a natural occurring phenomena in conscious creatures. Why would we say it's supernatural? I'm like,
I don't know.
It's
I don't know how. We'd have to dig in. What do you mean when you say that it's evidence of the natural?
but do you but Brody, do you understand what I'm saying when I'm like you're saying it was a miracle that your life changed and you started acting differently and doing different things
Yeah.
in your life, right? And I'm saying that happens constantly all the time in the human
Praise
condition,
God.
that people change, that their lives change, but it's like but I'm saying like what are the people who have experiences or dreams like this, or like, you know, strange occurrences throughout their day, and when they don't attribute it to God, they're necessarily making a mistake. I'm trying to differentiate your experience outside of appealing to you being primed by your parents and by your religious culture. I'm trying to differentiate between those things, and then I keep coming back to, oh, okay, yeah, he was basically taught to attribute these things to God.
Was taught
Well,
correctly.
there's people all around the world in all kinds of different religions that have the same type of experience but attribute it to a different god. So would you accept that exact same experience as evidence for the other gods all around the world? I think
Absolutely. Like that's
is a
why I
thing
make
to
the
consider.
distinction between evidence and proof. I think that all sorts of belief systems have evidence. I think that Buddhists have evidence, Hindus have evidence, Muslims have evidence. We just have better evidence. So I think that there absolutely is. There's other supernatural forces at work besides God. So if somebody says I had an encounter with something supernatural and they call it God, but it contradicts God's word, it contradicts the Bible, I have a word for that. I call it demonic, or I call it, that fits in. That doesn't destroy my framework to believe that other people experience supernatural things. I think it's kind of harder to answer if you don't believe in the supernatural. Why so many people are having these experiences?
No, that's
You know?
not hard at all. We understand this in cognitive science, that human beings, by way of our nature and our constraints and our cognitive limitations, experience this stuff all the time. Like we have like really good modeling to understand these kinds of phenomena.
Yeah, but then you get
in
to
the
the
natural
third base
sciences.
problem that I'm getting to, which I brought up earlier, right? You can say, look, we have a scientific method to, understand all of these things, but you have to first explain why we have life and consciousness and all these things.
No, you don't. You don't have to be able to explain that. We explain.
Well, you can skip over that part.
We
Sure, that's
explain,
a huge part, though.
but we explain chemistry and everything else without having the ultimate answers to any of this stuff. So I don't think we have to. I don't think we have to in science. Understand what you think we have to understand.
What if I were to come to the conversation like this, Travis? What if I
Yeah.
were to say, I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I just was really convinced by, certain philosophical arguments for the existence of God. That's what primed me to believe in the supernatural, right? And because of that, I attribute these three experiences I had to God, because I was convinced by, the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, the moral argument, all these things.
That can
Then
happen. Yeah.
these are suddenly very relevant questions, because you guys can say, we can explain those things too, but you can't explain where they came from. Like, you can't explain the starting point, is what I'm getting at.
Well, neither can you. I mean,
oh sure, I have a worldview that allows
not
for
in a way that satisfies my epistemic standards. I mean, I know it satisfies your sentiments, but I mean,
Brody,
no,
you do
I
have.
think that if you believe that, this is just one example, right? If you believe that we were all cosmic accidents, like products of biological evolution, I don't know why I should trust any logic or things that you're putting forward to me, any epistemic standard you have. I don't know why you would even trust your own cognition to produce these,
I mean,
what you identify as truth.
but
If
you
I,
trust in
believe that
you trust in
our mind
empiricism,
came
right?
from an intelligent mind, then it makes a lot of sense to say why I'd be able to trust my mind.
Why?
I think it's
Yeah, it's a
I
weird
think
presupposition, I think.
Yeah.
yeah, I think Brody that you're first of all you're straw manning the answers that the natural sciences have given us. Like actually evolution makes very good sense if you ever take the time to learn it. It makes absolute sense. In fact, it's hard to imagine how anything else could have been the case once you learn evolution. But I want to know, like when you said a while ago that you think other people are having demonic, how are you deciding that you are not the one who is having the experience with the demonic, and it's the other people who are having the different experience that are having an experience with the divine? Because it seems to me that there is no way to tell the difference.
No, there is. I mean, at least the reason I would call some experiences demonic and not from God, even though they are still supernatural experiences,
Uh-huh.
are because they contradict the revealed word
They,
of Christ,
okay,
and
they
they
contradict. Wait a minute. They
The Bible
contradict.
contradicts itself, dude.
They contradict your. I'm just going to clarify. They contradict your scripture, which is
well they
like
they
which
they con-
claims to be. Wait a minute. Which
the
claims
life
to be revealed in Christ.
the life teachings, death and resurrection of Jesus vindicates him as the truth bearer, the way, the truth, and the life to me. Okay, so and to millions around the world. So I can place my confidence in Jesus, and if someone goes against Jesus, they could definitely have an experience with the supernatural, but it's not one that's from God.
But I mean, you understand though that it's just because you have chosen that religion to put your trust in. Like,
Yeah, because I have reason to put trust in it.
I mean, no, I was a Christian for 50 years, and I had a very good reason to not continue to trust Christianity. But I mean, if you take any other religion and look at them, and they have the same, they're you are a Christian, pretty much mostly because of your geography.
Oh.
I mean, geography is one of the biggest contributing factors to a person's religious beliefs. I mean, it's one of the biggest contributing factors, and then of course you've got, your friends and family or whatever, that your environment. But geography is one of the things that most decides that environment, and I would say that all of the people who practice Islam are the same, like this in the same thing, and they feel just as strong, and they have just as much confidence in their religion as you do in Jesus, and it's like, if I was to come to Earth and I had never heard of any of these religions, I don't know how in the world, if I was told that there was one of them that was true, I would ever decide which one it was.
Look into the evidence of Jesus's resurrection. This is the thing that. So, if I could just answer that, right? The important thing is not the passion or the insistence that someone has about their belief. It's the object of their belief. So Muslims absolutely are passionate. They believe 100% that what they have is true, but they're wrong about the fact of Jesus' crucifixion.
Okay,
historically speaking,
what
they're
evidence
just wrong.
what evidence do you have for the historical crucifixion and subsequent resurrection of a man named Jesus?
I have evidence. It's up to Travis if we want to.
Well, you guys, we have to pay attention to the topic today. We're talking about personal experiences with gods.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we need to try to focus on that.
I think a good spot maybe to pick up again. We were talking about presuppositions and whatnot, and we were talking about evidences about the natural with the experiences, cognition, non-physical things. Oh, that's right. I don't agree at all that we need to know, like, the first cause, if there is one, whether it's eternal, all of these kind of metaphysical foundations in order to empiricize. Like, we can still do empiricism and form beliefs without the metaphysical questions. I mean, we can do the science. So I don't know if you want to go. I mean, you mentioned something like,
Yeah.
why should I trust an evolved like ape brain versus a consciousness that comes from intelligent mind?
Hmm.
I don't agree with those presuppositions personally.
Well, there's a couple things in there because I'm a theist as well. I'm just a different kind of theist. I don't believe in the supernatural whatsoever. So I have an entirely naturalistic perception of God. And you guys keep saying metaphysical and directly associating that with supernatural, but there is an entirely naturalistic frame with which to perceive the metaphysical.
Yeah, it's at least naturalism, like naturalism. The question that at hand that I disagree with, that there's naturalism and the supernaturalism alongside, as Brody says, with it. I don't think we need to add those extra foundations to do like science, to know that our cognitions are biased and distorted in many ways and limited. We are evolved ape brains, after all.
There are some examples of empirical examples of things that physicalism has not been able to explain strictly, and I will add the odd caveat of yet, because things tend to get explained through time. But
Good
there's some physical phenomenon such as dark matter, dark energy, virtual particles within quantum fluctuations. These are some of the naturalistic metaphysical things that I would cite that have an observed effect on physicality, but themselves elude the firm grasp of a physical explanation. Now, of course, within time, these could very well be fully explained within a strictly physical framework. But it is my proposition that, because I'm an extreme subjectivist, like the hard problem of consciousness, people say uh, that it's only hard if you start from the axiom of the subjective arising from the objective, and it is my claim that it is actually the objective or the seeming objective that arises from the subjective, which is my perception.
Okay, yeah,
And
we can get into that idealism and like hard problem of consciousness and maybe
well,
your
it's
experience
not
with
quite
God.
idealism. It is idealism adjacent. Like anytime I bring this up, people always go to panpsychism, idealism. It's not quite that. It is. I understand it
Sure.
is similar to,
Well,
but it is
let's
quite.
get into it in a bit, because I was trying to steer this back to like the experience of God, and I would like to hear maybe your experience, Dark, but I want to hear a response from Brody, if you don't mind, with why you need to like have those gap filled metaphysical foundations like a first cause or intelligence or whatever in order to do science or know something.
What I'm trying to say is, if you acknowledge there is a gap that needs to be filled, you shouldn't be so confident in saying there is no supernatural. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying the God of the gaps is the way of proving God. I'm not trying to say that, like, because you don't have the problem of consciousness figured out, or because you don't know the beginning of the universe, therefore God exists. I'm saying because you have that huge gap that you're jumping over, you shouldn't be so confident that all we have is the natural.
But why do we need to fill that gap? What's the
If you
gap?
want,
What's the necessary gapology condition that necessitates us to fill that in order to have any sort of knowledge?
I'm not. No, I'm not saying you can't have any knowledge, right? I'm saying that.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Maybe I misheard you earlier then.
Gapology.
I'm just saying that, like, acknowledge that you're making you're saying there is this gap here, this big gap, and also it can't be anything supernatural because we don't have any reason to believe it's supernatural. Like,
No, we're not saying that. That would be a dogma. to
Okay,
say that
then
it can't be.
okay, great. All right. Then I rest my case. That's so like
Yeah.
when I talk to people about getting it back to the original topic, right? Like when I talk to people about my personal experience, and you say like, well, the reason you're so primed to believe these things were God is because of your upbringing. That's why I said, well, what if I say the reason I believe these are God is because of the philosophical arguments for God's existence, based that actually do fill these gaps.
I was going to ask you that also. Like, was it the personal experience that like was like the eureka moment, or was it later on over time you
Yeah.
studying the resurrection and the argumentation and
There's a
stuff?
huge difference to me between believing God exists and like being a Christian. And like like you can believe the Christian God exists, but not like submit your life to Christ and have him be your personal savior and all that. So the experience I described was my experience of giving my
Devoting
life to
yourself to
Christ,
Christ.
devoting
Yeah.
him. My
Yeah.
my I was into apologetics since I was, this is really cringy to even admit, but like since like 5th grade, dude. I got
Oh,
my
I could
first
have assumed
apologetics.
that.
Yeah, I got
I
my
knew
first
that from the
apologetics
start.
book. So like I knew arguments for God's existence, and I think I had the logical like the mental assent, or like the I don't know, my words are
You
failing
had a
me right
sound
now.
epistemology at 10 years old, is what you're claiming.
Probably not. Is
And
not.
you definitely weren't. And you
But
weren't
like
primed.
I believed that God existed, and I could defend his existence from a very young age. That was never a question for me. My parents weren't into that stuff. So this was kind of my own little solo venture. So that's a separate question from like, is Jesus Lord and will you follow him, to me.
I think your parents were doing it right, believing on blind faith. Fuck the reason.
I think blind faith is super cringe. I think that like I don't think any of the disciples had blind faith. I think if you put your confidence in something that you have no reason to believe in, that's like, trusting a stranger. I think that's really, really dangerous waters. So my reason for being a Christian and believing the Christian God is because I've been convinced by the evidence that he is trustworthy, he is who he says he is, that Jesus lived, so on and so forth.
Maybe I'm equivocating. Maybe it's a redundant statement because I'm using the Hebrews 11, like belief in the things unseen and hoped
Yeah.
for, or whatever. So, I mean, I imagine you have that as a good Christian, which if you're basing your evidence off of things that you hope for, I mean, I hate to tell you, but there are plenty of naturalistic explanations of cognitive biases and stuff that goes with affirmation.
So you are getting to like where I am currently in my walk in my faith right now is like, as like the past year has been this journey of like reading Christians like Pascal and like Kierkegaard, who like really disagree with this whole marrying.
You love Kierkegaard.
Yeah, dude. This whole like marrying of faith and reason, they're like, no, cut that out. It's like, just take a leap of faith and down with Athens.
Precisely.
Just and so I'm trying to challenge myself on that and really embracing the idea that there is like this unknown that I have to leap and trust in, because I've always taken the more like logical route. So maybe I'll have a different opinion in a couple months when I'm done reading Ponce and everything. So
Hey, I
Cool,
do.
yeah, I have a
sorry.
volume here. It goes Hegel, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, which is perfect because you go from Kierkegaard and then you may convince yourself, and then you read Nietzsche, which is immediately after, and then you're like, okay, I'm an atheist.
Hey,
yeah,
I
I've been
did.
reading Nietzsche.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to get Robin's personal experience in here, and it would be cool to hear Brody interact with that and everyone else. Robin, do you want to share yours?
Put Dark in the queue too for giving an
yeah.
experience if you
Yeah,
have
for
one.
sure. Also, yeah, anyone who has a personal experience with God, even if you don't believe it was now, but have a personal experience to share with, in that you attributed it to God at some point. Please queue up and get ready to share that. Go ahead, Robin.
I grew up Christian. I thought I was saved at 7 years old. Went to church all my life. I always had issues with the Christian God, though. I found that, to me, he's not all loving, and I struggled constantly with that cognitive dissonance of that being a logical contradiction of itself. So when I was around 42 43 years old, something like that. I hadn't quit going to church a long time ago. I got into I fell asleep one day at my boss's house in the recliner chair, and I woke up and there was some kind of YouTube video going on about twin flames, which I don't know if anybody knows. It's like woo-woo stuff about having your twin flame is like whenever your soul was originally created, it gets split, takes one fire and splits it into two flames, and you go through these different reincarnation bodies to where you lived out all these different experiences, and you sometimes run into each other. But anyway, so it's just a really long mess of woo-woo, but it like spoke to me, so I started really getting into it, and I spent the next 4 years just like really engrossed in this at what I would say Brody would call demonic stuff, but like it was it brought me a lot of peace, and there for a while I really felt like it really gave me like sometimes some really good answers, I thought, like, and there's been times when there were certain things that happened along those in that period to where I still to this day have no explanation for what seemed like that I could know something, like I could kind of control. In fact, it led me to believe in magic, is what I'm trying to say, like to do like magic and stuff. Of course, eventually, I did lose belief in that too, after I studied a lot of science. So, I had the presupposition though that there was something that existed outside of the physical. And I think that that's allowed me to believe about anything. So I think that's where I went with that. Why I just the Christianity's never it never answered the things that I needed answered about why God was cruel and stuff like that. And this seemed to do a much better job of doing that. But then after I learned a little science, I kind of, I don't say that there is no supernatural, but I have no reason to include that into my epistemic, processes. Like it could turn out to be there, but until we can measure it and detect it, I don't know that I have any reason to believe in it. So, but that's all mine. There's a whole lot of stuff, but I don't really want to go into all that personal stuff about those experiences.
Thanks, Robin. Any thoughts? Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to hear those stories at some point, Robin, at some point, maybe not now, maybe not here, but I'm definitely interested in some of the details you glossed over.
Yeah,
same.
Dane, yeah, I just throw it on YouTube, share it. So some of the stuff I don't really want to share on YouTube, to be on YouTube forever. So, but
I'm glad you convalesced into a healthier epistemology.
me too.
Mm-hmm.
Robin, thanks for sharing your experience.
Yeah, thank you.
What do you think, Brody?
Yeah, where did she
You,
go?
like-
Where did she go wrong, Brody?
Well, I'm wondering, Robin, when you say that you grew up Christian, what do you mean by that?
Oh, my family's missionary Baptist.
Okay, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but that doesn't quite answer my question.
Missionary Baptists are like old timey church.
No, I know. I wasn't asking about your family though. Like, I mean, is that just what when you say you grew up Christian, you mean like you grew up in a Christian family?
Yeah, I grew up in entire in a little bitty church, a little bitty country church, revivals twice a year.
Like, would you ever say that you were a Christian yourself? Like, you were a
Oh yeah, I
believer,
thought I
a
was
follower of
saved
Jesus?
at 7 years old. At 7 years old, I thought I was saved, got baptized. And I would say over the years, there were times when I still went to church where I thought I felt the Spirit of God, and I would sometimes, pray for people when they were lost, and I would give testimonies in church about, this and that thing happening, and but like after now that I've kind of looked into like how the experience of God is created somewhat in like a theatrical view, like what Travis was talking about, like the theater of church and the theater of the experience, then it's and you can have like Matt says, you can have these same experiences, and I've had these same experiences with things other than through Christianity, like concerts. I would say that there's certain movies that have moved me to that kind of like almost a religious like experience. The birth of my children was that kind of experience. And I would say there's even another person in this world that like that person caused in me a certain religious experience that was none like no other. But like so the fact that we can recreate that same feeling, like certain music makes me have that religious experience. You know what I mean? Like it isn't just limited to one belief system. And so I think that shows that it has to be more universal among humans and less centered in any one system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, and I would agree with that last part you said. I do think there are universal transcendent experiences that can be held by any human that encounters like awe and beauty in a profound sense. I don't think that you have to be a Christian to experience the divine or the supernatural or the transcendent or anything like that. I would just I think what you're describing as growing up Christian was kind of what I experienced of growing up Christian, and I thought I was a Christian, like I thought I was really following Jesus, but I had not actually followed him. Like I hadn't, and I'm trying to like be careful with my words because
You're
I
not
hate.
to commit the no true Scotsman fallacy, but I think you are.
That's what I was. That's what I was feeling.
I swear, every time I talk to this dude. Sorry.
Well,
Okay.
I mean,
I'm okay. I'm okay.
I never read the Bible.
Yeah, so like if you're telling me like I'm a Christian, but I've never read the Bible and I don't believe God is good, like that
I'd never
seems
read the
to
Bible.
me.
Yeah, I had never read the Bible
Well,
when I was.
Robin
Yeah.
also said that she didn't say this here, but I remember her telling me like her whole town was Christian, or at least people who called themselves Christian, went to church. Oh, God is good. Have a great day, man.
Yeah,
God bless. You know.
you're culturally a Christian, sure, but like that's not how
But in
Christianity.
the Pew data research, they're considered Christians.
Oh, well, that fact check,
I
bro.
was
Like I
more
mean, you're
than
right, man.
I was
That
more than a cultural Christian. Like I was a Christian for a long time, but the thing about it is I kept struggling with this. What I struggled with was like the existence of child abusers.
yeah.
That was because I was a victim of that as a child.
Yeah. I'm
And
just so like
so I struggled with that. I asked my mother, why does God make these people? Well, I got this answer of free will. Okay, free will does not, like, I know that people think that explains shit, but like the fact that somebody else's free will overrides it to where I don't have free will doesn't explain, like free will doesn't explain how, like, where my free will went. Like you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. So like I continued to struggle with this, and I kept getting these cookie cutter answers, and I never read the Bible. But like, if I had read the Bible, I think at an earlier age, I probably would have left Christianity a long time before I did, because I did not know that there was horrific passages in it about the things that, Yahweh condoned and ordered and stuff in the Old Testament. And if you're a Trinitarian, you have to believe that that is also Jesus. So I just, after I got old enough to look at it, and I was like, ooh, I don't think, if God exists, he's not good. That's the way I felt about it. So I decided he wasn't worth worshiping. I'd say I still believed in him for a little while, even after I quit worshiping.
Right. Yeah, my only point, like, I hear what you're saying 100%. My only point is, like, when Jesus says to Nicodemus that in order to follow him, you must be born again. That is the mark of a believer of Christ. That is like what a Christian is. It's not what the Pew data research says. It's not like somebody who grew up in a Christian family or went to a Christian church or had like goosebumps in a Christian service. It's somebody who's been born again and who has the Spirit living within them. So that's all I was getting at. Like I'm just saying that because I think if you tell Christians, I grew up Christian, you're going to be met with that kind of pushback from other Christians. They're going to say, no, you weren't a Christian because you didn't know God, you didn't read the Bible, you didn't believe he was good, you weren't born again, all that kind of stuff.
At 7 years old, I went to the altar and begged God to save my soul, and was down there for probably a couple hours. I mean, this is a little bitty old timey church. You know what I mean? Like, you had to go through all of that part to get saved.
Me too.
And so that's my experience. Like, and I would have told you from the age 7 until whenever I lost belief in the Christian God that he saved my soul at age 7.
Okay.
And now I don't. But then after I began studying this theology of that belief, I just I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
But I know what I.
Thank you for sharing your experience. I know it's like personal to you, so I think that's cool that you shared that with us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, hush.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. How about Dark Light Delirium? If you're still available, do you want to share your experience with God? Calling on Dark Light. He might have went to do something. Albert on TikTok says, I'm supporting the first 5 people who messaged me. Tough time. God bless y'all.
That's a bot. That's a bot.
Must be a bot.
Wait. What did it say exactly?
Try it out. Do something. It says, I'm supporting the first 5 people who messaged me. Tough time. God bless y'all. Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. Like this message if you love Jesus. Ignore if you love Satan.
Yeah. If you scroll past this meme without sharing it, you hate Jesus.
There's a Family Guy where he's like, yeah, but everyone who doesn't want to go to war is gay. And then all the politicians are like, I want to go to war. I was the first one who wanted to go to war.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. That's the best argument you can make in Congress. I don't think I've had anything. I'm trying to, as everyone's been talking, I've been trying to think in my mind, because it's my belief that I've never had any experience or any kind of belief related, like positive belief in God, or any experience that I would connect to, like where I even was like, I wonder if that's God. It looks like Dark Light Delirium is back. Do you want to share your experiences with God?
I have shared it before, and it's nothing extravagant. But for one, God made me look like this. I
A handsome
like
dude,
this.
Joe Rogan looking dude. How about that?
Yeah, but so kind of going back to the story that Brody, where he said he had an experience and it changed his life. I did have something kind of similar to that, but it was a very solo experience. It wasn't with anyone else. It was just a realization that I create my own world, and from that realization, um, I am God. We are all God. We are all a fractal extension of the Godhood, as I like to call it. We are all co-creators within the Godhood. And it's funny because Christians like to go around saying, you can't create God in your image. No, motherfuckers, that's exactly what y'all do. Christians took the Judaic God and they created it in an image that was acceptable to the people who wanted to worship Christianity. So they totally morphed the Judaic God into the Christian God, therefore creating a God in an image that they found acceptable. And not only that, there's more layers to that because on top of that, every single Christian has their own personal ideas and associations with exactly what it is that the Bible is trying to say about Jesus. In effect, every single person is their own church of interpretation of exactly what the Bible is trying to say. So every Christian actually does create Jesus in the way that makes sense to them, essentially creating the God of Jesus in the image that they want. But the thing that the Abrahamic religions does is they manipulate co-creators into relinquishing our divine sovereignty. Our divine sovereignty is our inseparable connection to the actual one true creator. And this is where I disagree with Brody on a few things. He said earlier that not every revelation is true revelation. I disagree with that there. I say every single word ever spoken is the word of God. Every single name ever spoken is the name of God. For there is no name or word possible to be spoken without the breath of life which empowers it. So it wasn't like some, once again, I don't believe in a supernatural God. It's an entirely naturalistic God. So it makes sense that the examples I'm giving you are naturalistic because just as simple as realizing that, hey, the world I have is the world that I have created for myself. And it is the result of all the decisions and actions that I make every single day. So it is just basically taking that power of my own world's creation unto myself and rolling with it and going with it. And that is why I'm the dark light delirium.
Got a question for Dark Light Delirium. When I said not all revelation is from God, was that the word of God?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Well, you're kind of smuggling in a presupposition. Now, once again, with the presupposition thing, that's something I wanted to clarify is we all have presuppositions. When you walk, when you take a step, you are presupposing that the earth is going to be there to catch you. When you take a drink of water, you are presupposing that that is going to quench your thirst. So, you know, there are meta levels of presupposition. So, when you just said that, you were kind of smuggling in, you know, nothing can contradict. But this is where I greatly differ from followers of Abraham, whereas they greatly insist that there's no contradiction. I actually steer into that. One of the traits on my Decalogue, the Dark Light Decalogue, is actually paradox, number 5. And I draw a distinction between paradox and contradiction. Paradox is verifiable. Contradiction, and contradiction is easily dismissible contradiction. So there are scientifically verifiable paradoxes, such as the wave particle duality, such as superposition. Something can be both in a form and also not in a form simultaneously. So I actually do embrace paradox. So when you say something, yes, that's the word of God. And when someone else says something that contradicts that, yes, at the same time, that is the word of God. That every word ever spoken is the word of God, for there is no word possible to be spoken without the breath of life which empowers it.
So if someone were to say that true contradictions, like two propositions that are mutually exclusive, cannot exist, there's no contradictions, Are they speaking the word of God?
Every word ever spoken is the word of God.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
See, and that's another thing. So, my proposition of the one true Creator owns every single word ever spoken, but the Abrahamic proposition of the one true Creator owns the word spoken in this tiny little book. My proposition of the one true Creator says that every single creation within existence is perfect. The Abrahamic proposition of the one true Creator says only certain creations, such as Jesus, are perfect, depending on which religion you fall in.
And is the
So,
Abrahamic proposition the word of God?
every single word, yes, yes.
Okay.
Are all words of God true? Seems to be the tension that you guys are maybe trying to get at. Or can there be false things, false words of God?
No, it's all true. Is what I'm saying. So he's trying to say, um, is our words true? Sure, but so is the word of every single other religion out there. All
What
divinity.
does true mean? When you say true, what does that mean?
Well, we'll see. Here you're trying to smuggle in the
I'm just asking a
proposition.
question. Like, what does that word mean that you're using? True.
So to me, when I say true, I am speaking about it because I don't believe in objective truth. To me, all truth is subjective. So when I say it is true, I am saying it is subjectively true to the person who is speaking it.
But like in that explanation, what does the word true mean there? When you say subjectively true, what does that mean?
It means true to the person who is holding that claim.
I know, but you're using true in the definition. That's why I'm like asking you again. Like when you say something is true to a person, what does that mean? True.
True is true. I mean, I don't know what you're getting at here.
I'm just trying to figure out what you mean by true. Like when I mean true, I mean so that's it. It correlates or corresponds to reality. So if I say something is and it is, I'm saying something true. If I say something that is not and it is not, then that's true. But if I say something is not but it is, that's false. If I say something is and it is not, that's false. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're coming from a point of view of objective truth, which a lot of people agree with that. I'm sure everyone on this panel right here, when I say that all truth is subjective, everyone's like bullshit, and I'm used to that. That's cool. I got an entire chapter in my book dedicated to objective versus subjective truth.
Wait, but you have a chapter about this in your book, but you can't tell me what you mean when you say the word truth.
Well, I'm telling you by the clarifier of subjective truth, but you don't
It's
like
not
that.
helping me because I don't know what the word truth means in that sentence.
It's a subjective truth. There's different forms of truth. You have a proposed objective truth, and you have a proposed subjective truth. I don't. If you're looking for other words to describe the exact word of truth, I don't know them. I just around the truth.
Well, it's like when you say that two things could you can make one statement and it contradicts or it is mutually exclusive with another statement, but they're both true. That leads me to think that you're using true in a different way than I'm using it. So that's why I'm trying to understand what you mean when you say true that allows you to make that claim.
I'm using it in an extreme subjectivist way, whereas most people are using it in an extreme objectivist way.
Can anyone say anything that's not true?
Um, I mean, subjectively, yeah, sure. You can have a subjectively held lie, sure.
Okay. I'll have to think about that.
Like for example, I could say that if I walk off this cliff, I'm not going to fall to my death, but that doesn't mean that just because I say that I won't. You know what I'm saying? So
So you're tying it to reality. You're saying if the words I speak map onto what really is the case, that means they're true.
well, no. What I'm saying is that everyone's truth is solely tied to their perception. Truth has no meaning outside of the perception of the person observing and empowering the proposition of truth. So there is no situation that you can throw at me where I would say that is objective truth, because it is subjective in some form to the person experiencing that proposed truth.
Well, if you just gave an example though, you said if somebody says I'm gonna walk off this cliff and I'm gonna walk on the air, even though that was what you might call their subjective truth, you admitted that that's not true. That's a lie, right? They're not actually gonna walk on air, so their
No.
perception would be wrong then.
But that is still subjective to them.
It's just not.
You're
It might be subjective, like it's not true though.
you can say a thing, and that thing that you say could turn out to not align with reality, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you saying the thing, you perceiving the thing, and you experiencing the thing of reality is all entirely subjective.
Yeah, but it wouldn't make it true though.
Yeah, you can say a thing and think it's true and say it's true, and it turns out to not align with reality. Sure.
Yeah, and you'd be wrong.
But that is subjectively wrong. Sure.
Subjectively wrong.
Subjectively wrong.
Like,
I would agree with.
Like the objectively, I'm gonna fall off this cliff. Subjectively, I think I'm gonna fly, but objectively, gravity's gonna pull me down to my death.
Yeah, and you are experiencing that through the subjectivity of your consciousness. So just because you say a thing through your subjectivity doesn't mean that just by sheer proclaiming something that is going to somehow override.
Got it. I think I understand where you're coming from. Thanks for letting me press you on your view.
Well, I'm writing a whole chapter on this in my book, but and I'm used to people disagreeing with me on this, but believe me, I've had this conversation quite a few times with people. So.
Yeah, I just think, like, I'm not your editor. I can't. You're writing your own book. Do your own thing. But if I was reading your book, I would want to know from the get-go what exactly you mean by truth before you start talking about truth. Because I think the way you're using truth is a different way than most people think about truth. So if you started your chapter and said, like, hey, when I use the word truth in this chapter, I mean this, that might just help readers understand what you're getting at.
Yeah, and if you would give me your email, I'd be happy to send you that chapter, and I'm very happy to take criticisms. My entire framework has been chiseled by the criticisms of others. That's why it is as streamlined as it is right now, is because I actively go out and put it out in front of people, and I actively accept and take criticisms to refine.
Awesome.
Do any of my atheist friends got anything on the truth thing?
Yeah, I too am confused when you say true during things that are contradictory. And I'm a correspondence theorist of truth. I believe that what I call true is that which corresponds to reality through my empirical senses. So, I mean, I get that there are subjective truths. Objective truth, objective is a homonym, which can mean many different things, but I believe that there is a state of affairs that is acting mind independently of me, and from that we gather things which we call true, but maybe I need to read an excerpt from your chapter to, I mean, I would encourage anyone to use academia and what like the philosophy heads are saying. There's coherence, theory of truth, pragmatic theories of truth, and you can create your own custom criteria of truth, which sounds very in line with what you're trying to do. I agree with Brody, though. You would want to maybe delineate and disambiguate maybe some of these tensions here. But so you don't think anything can be wrong, essentially? I think I asked you that earlier.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying any perceived rightness or wrongness is inherently subjective.
Sure, I agree with that. Okay, well, I don't want to just echo Brody's conversation, but yeah.
I mean, you give it to me from your perspective because I could just see it on all y'all when I was talking about this. You're like, I'm gonna get that motherfucker. So
No, I'm my claws are defanged for tonight. I'm already full. No, but I mean, I agree that the truths are born of the subject in a way. There's really no other way for there to be any truth, in my opinion. Again, I believe that there is a state of affairs, but I don't conflate truth with like real or mind independent. Um, so, I mean, subjectively, I think that there are things that exist independent of me. Would you agree with that? Like, if all
um,
minds cease to exist, would there still be something? Or
that
how do you
that
feel about that?
that depends on what you identify yourself as. I identify myself as an extension of everything else. So I identify myself as intrinsically united with everything. So
Yeah.
um, I'm not exactly a solipsist. There is um, a way I could distort solipsism to more closely align with my framework to make solipsism a bit more accurate. But no, I'm not a solipsist. I absolutely agree that there are others, but I don't distinguish it. All the others are just another um, version of myself. Is the way I look at it. I see every single person as an extension of God. We are all God living through our lives. God is my least favorite word for it. I just use that word to reclaim it back from the harm that the followers of Abraham have inflicted upon it.
Well, it sounds like I don't think you're a solipsist. It sounds like you're kind of like a pantheist in a way, where everything is God. And I don't know if you'd agree with that label or not, but that's what.
Well,
And I think it also sounds like if like humanity and all the animals, all of the zoological species died, there would still be something. Well, it would still be God, maybe you would say. I'm not sure about that, but
I actually have direct comparisons in my book to my proposed framework with every other philosophy, and panpsychism is on there, idealism is on there, solipsism is on there. So I do have overlaps with other philosophies and theologies, but none of them are exact matches. So some of the differences with panpsychism is to them the most fundamental trait is consciousness, but to me the most fundamental trait is unity, which allows the consciousness to even uh, propagate and uh, and and extend essentially.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So what about pantheism? Um, do you believe that everything um, is God? I mean, I know you said that everything is unity. Would you synonymize unity with God?
Well, yeah, I would. So there are parallels to panpsychism, but it's definitely
Pantheism. Pantheism.
pantheism. Yeah. There's parallels there, but it is not the exact same thing at all. I have a totally different framework, but if you wanted to boil it down to its most essential parts, you could closely align it to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't care to
Is
put you in a box if you don't agree with it. I'm just trying to tease out the ideas a little bit.
I call it the fractal singularity omni matrix. That is my favorite
Okay.
for what people would call God.
I've got to go in like 5 minutes, so if anyone has anything left that they wanted to ask me before I go, you're welcome to.
Hey, Brody, I would really love for us to have a conversation one day about the evidence for the resurrection.
Oh yeah, maybe we could do a live about that sometime.
Yeah,
I
we
think
could
if
do
I
Jesus'
actually just did
resurrection.
yeah, because if you could like prove the resurrection of Jesus, I think that you
well,
would be like there would be a lot of people who would convert to Christianity. Um, like
they Yeah, I mean, I can give evidence. I can't prove it, but I can. I think I can give really strong evidence. And I actually just did a teaching on this at my church, and I can, once I upload it to YouTube, I can put a link in here so you can watch
Nice.
it and know where I'm coming from. So
I got a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yes.
Perry.
We were talking about your brother earlier. Is your brother, does he believe in God?
Good question. I don't really know what his relationship with God is. I think he says
Okay.
he believes in God, but I don't know what his heart is. Yeah.
I would have brought up the priming evidence if he does believe in God. That may give the scale may tip towards the priming aspect of things. If he I mean, maybe he didn't have the same experiences as you also, for whatever. I just imagine that you said something about a mega church, and
Yeah. So since you like to bring up the no true Scotsman fallacy, I'm gonna bring up the genetic fallacy. I think I don't see the purpose in pointing to somebody's like the way they came about their belief as any, like, I don't think that makes any ground towards whether or not their belief is true or not.
I agree. It doesn't give credence toward whether a belief is true or not, but it gives credence to describing how the belief that it is true came about. I mean, would you agree that indoctrination, of course, I don't think that this is what happened with you, but you'd agree that indoctrination, like severe priming, unhealthy priming, leads to those kind of beliefs? Or would you disagree?
I think a lot of people are indoctrinated into believing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then just to lower the intensity of that priming, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's the genetic fallacy that just because it did. What do you mean by genetic? Do you mean the naturalistic
Well, that's
fallacy?
only no genetic fallacy of like saying that. That's only if you take the last step and say, well, therefore, because you, you were indoctrinated into believing this, we can be
It
sure that
is
it's
the
not
case.
true. Yeah,
No,
it is
that's
or is
why I
not
said
the case. Yeah.
evidences.
Yeah. If
It tips the
I just,
scale, I think, towards one side. You know, you
yeah.
put that pellet on the
Well,
scale as a piece of evidence, and now it's. But
it
it's not
only
like.
tips the scale if we're talking about reasons I have for believing in it, like reasons Brody has for believing. Of course, the scale is unbalanced. I was raised in a Christian household, but reasons Brody has
Yeah.
for believing is a boring conversation topic compared to does God exist to me. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
I
getting at.
mean, again, we were kind of talking about the experience,
I know.
which can tangent either into why is it that you think God exists and how it is that you came about to form, why it is you experienced it this way through this lens, this filter. So,
Yeah, it was on topic. That's fine. I just
but
maybe
and
I'm biased against epistemological conversations. I think they're a little boring to me.
it was just a passing
What?
thought because your brother is very different than you are. It sounds like so.
Yeah, I know I'm in the
So.
wrong server, right, Travis?
Oh man, you just broke my heart.
What
I
did he
got
say?
a question
Like
before you go.
every time
Pablo.
this is maybe it's just a weakness of mine, but like every time I talk about like God's existence and stuff, anytime people start getting into like, well, why do you believe that, or like what led you to believe that, I'm like, oh, like what a dumb question. Who cares, man?
It's
Like
not though.
I can say I grew up in Waco, Texas, and the cult, and like that wouldn't change whether or not it's true or not. Like, give me a
It's
break.
the most important question.
No,
And
it's
it is the
not.
hardest. It is the hardest question for believers to answer. If you watch all of the call-in shows, especially the one Matt runs, which I can't hardly stand to watch Matt anymore. But if you listen to his questions,
Who's
is
Matt?
why do you believe?
Delahanty.
Like he
Oh,
asked you, why do you believe this? And it is the hardest question for anybody to answer. They will call in and make all kinds of I believe this statements, but they can never explain why they believe it.
So
And I think it's important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you, Robin. It can be difficult. I think one of the difficult things is, Brody, is that I would say someone like you, um, you probably for the most part are a man of science, right? You use science as a way of knowing.
No, not really. I don't know a whole lot about science. I'm more
That's
of a
No, no,
bullshit.
philosophy
no,
man.
no. I mean, like if you want to know something about nature, for example, like you want
Uh-huh.
to know like whether there is a diminishment of this particular fish species due to overfishing in this part of the ocean,
Mm,
like you're going to look that
The
up on
weather. I
Google,
mean,
yeah,
right? The
yeah,
weather, you know,
for sure.
if you want to
Okay, I
learn,
see.
so I would say, Brody, you are predominantly, almost completely a man of science. However, um, when it comes to your faith,
Mhm.
you are not going to appeal to those same things you would normally appeal to,
Right.
as with regards to your way of knowing. You're going to say like, I think it would be a misapplication of that other way of knowing to do this. Now some people are going to see that as an incongruence. They're going to see it as contradictory. They're going to say, well, you make science as a way of knowing primary over here, and then something happens and switches within you when it comes to this other thing, and it might not be the only thing, but yeah, and then for one reason or another, you just seem to not care what this thing would have to say, or you think it doesn't have anything to say about this other thing. And some people, not you obviously, but some people who like call into atheist shows and things like that, have a hard time articulating clearly and coherently why it is they engage in that switch. Because if you aren't good at articulating it, it can just seem like, oh, you're just switching because you just want this other thing to be true. So you
Yeah,
know
I hear you.
you're just like I think that's why it's difficult. But I agree with you. If you're saying the thing that's important to me as a Christian is the fact that I believe, now I understand that. Like I can
I'm
understand
saying something
why.
a little different. I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
saying the thing
okay.
that's important. Like, I feel like my first commitment before my commitment to Christ is my commitment to truth. So
Really?
yeah,
You
if
make
Christ,
truth
if
you
Jesus,
make truth primary to what's good in the world?
I follow what is true. I hope. If
I
Yeah.
don't
Christ,
think you
if
do. I don't
Christianity,
think you do. I'll tell you
Christianity
why,
is
but
if Christianity isn't true, I'm wasting my time. If Jesus didn't resurrect, I'm to be the most pitied. Paul says, right?
what
Like
what would be what's so wrong with wasting your time on Jesus?
uh yeah. I mean, you can go Pascal's wager and say I didn't really lose much.
No, I'm
You
not
know.
even saying Pascal's wager. I'm just saying that if you lived your entire life being propelled forward towards the good by Jesus, and you came to the realization when you're 80 that this wasn't true based on your
Yeah.
current opinion, do you think that diminishes all of the good trajectory you were
It
on,
doesn't
like for
diminish the
most of
good.
your
I just think I would be disappointed because I'd know that I made a lot of really unnecessary sacrifices in my life.
sunk cost.
I've I,
well,
I've had to sacrifice a
yeah,
lot to do what I do, and to know that it was all for some made up fairy tale, I
but
think would be a big hit.
I would say I would say conceptualizing it in that way, like you're obviously not doing it all for some made up fairy tale, in my opinion, obviously not in your opinion. Even in this situation, like I would say fundamentally you are serving what feels most meaningful to you right
That's true.
now. And
That's true.
and what I'm saying is, this is why I think good is actually made primary in human beings over truth. like I think regardless of what is true, what we feel is true at the end of the day, and I can speak to a little about or read into the record the difference between truth and facts, because you guys were talking about truth earlier, and I think there might have been some crossover between what are facts and what are truth. There's a different relationship there, but I think despite what you change your mind on with regards to what is true, you are still going to have, a sentimental attachment to some degree to want to help other people, so long as you do have an empathy drive firing, so long as you are of sound mind, I would say. So I really do think at the end of the day that truth, being our born of our meta epistemic selves, born of our meta normative selves, true, our pet conceptualizations of truth. Everyone was just talking about what they mean by truth. Everyone was talking about, like, this is the kind of truth I employ, that which comports to reality. So you may not believe in that kind of truth tomorrow. You may believe in some other conceptualization of truth, but I would say, regardless of what happens there, whether or not, say, you helped your sick grandmother, whether you helped those in need, helped yourself to live a better life by whatever standard, at the end of the day, you're not going to feel like those are sunk costs because your conceptualization of truth changed. So I really do think human beings are in a position to make primary good, bad, right, and wrong, because we have intentionality behind how we move in the world, including in how we move epistemically, and epistemically includes how we commit to and conceptualize truth, how we do that value sorting. So I just wanted to read. So a fact, just quickly for the record, a fact is something that can be objectively verified through evidence or observation. It answers the question, what happened or what exists? Example, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. This is a fact because it can be tested and confirmed. Truth is a broader concept. It refers to what is genuinely real or accurate, and it may include facts, but it can also involve meaning, interpretation, or principles that are not always directly measurable. Example, honesty builds trust. While this is not a scientific fact or a fact in general, in the same way as the boiling point of water, many would regard it as a truth based on human experience. Another thing to consider about truth, and Perry alluded a bit to this, but when you get into high level, high resolution academic philosophy, truth becomes this, truth is that which comports to reality to me. That would be layer one, truth 101 in high resolution philosophy. We all in our day-to-day are dealing with different competing theories of truth in how we are navigating the world. We don't always get access to that which comports to reality. Our spouse calls us on the phone and says, they just stopped by the grocery store and they saw so-and-so and that was interesting. And then we ask, okay, well, does that truth correspond to reality? Well, you're accepting it before you know whether or not it corresponds to reality. So this is where we get into coherence criteria or coherentism. There are people like Marcus, who used to be a member of our server here, who was a very interesting fellow, but something very interesting about him is he relied on a criteria of truth by tradition, by way of a family library of knowledge that was kind of co-authored and pieced together by family members throughout his history, and he got his truth primarily from that tradition that traditional library. And he would believe things to be true by way of that passed down tradition, like that there were advanced futuristic cities prior to World War II in Europe. Like all of these exotic, strange things that anyone who's making correspondence criteria of truth primary, which gives birth to empiricism and science as a way of knowing, that would contradict these notions of truth. So truth, one of the most important things you can do if you want to up your game as a philosopher, as a thinker, and really dive into the interesting corners of not only the human experience, but how you conceptualize truth in your day-to-day, you're going to start realizing that you're not as much as an empiricist or a scientific minded person as you thought you were. Almost all of the truths you are accepting in your day to day are because they just feel coherent to you. And there is correspondence involved in that as well. But those who say truth to me means that which comports to reality, I don't think that's true by way of correspondence criteria of truth in examining you, the object, and the subject. I don't think that statement is true with how you actually go about your day-to-day. But we will do an episode soon on truth, and hopefully we will blow some minds and open some minds into some, and maybe we'll do this tomorrow, but we will open up an entire seemingly endless landscape that is truth in high resolution academic philosophy, that has these deep peaks and valleys and stretches where all of us, in fact, have delved at some time, and we can pick through our experiences and find where we have been victims in particular pits of truth that we find detestable. So there's a lot of interesting things, deep caves to explore with regards to the mysteries of truth. So
I think Casey wanted to ask Brody something, by the way, before he goes.
Yeah, go ahead, Casey, if you had something.
Yeah, just if he has time, because I was curious if I went to share my experience, if he'd be pulling the same thing as with Robin. But what is being born again? Oh, Katha.
Yeah, I've got like 2 minutes. So that phrase comes from John chapter 3, which is where we get John 3:16 from. And Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they're born again." And then Nicodemus says, "How can someone be born when they're so old? Surely they cannot enter a second time into their mother's womb." Jesus answers, "Very truly I tell you, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they're born of water and the Spirit. The flesh gives birth to flesh, but Spirit gives birth to spirit. You should not be surprised at me saying you must be born again." Anything he goes on. So it comes from the idea that each of us were born into sin. We're born with a sin nature, which is we have a disposition towards rebellion and enmity towards God. And when we are born again, we are given new life. We are what the Bible calls like a new creation. So our sins are washed away and forgiven, and the Spirit of God ends up dwelling within us. That's like in summary.
So would you say if somebody is falling back into sin, were they not truly born again?
So 1 John says if we say we have no sin, we make ourselves and God a liar. So it's not that once you're born again, you're going to be sinless, at least not on this side of eternity. But if you make a habit of sinning, as in like you walk in sin or like live in darkness, 1 John says you can't walk in darkness and claim to be in the light. So that's kind of the distinction that is made is like there's a difference between like slipping up and sinning versus like rejecting God and living in sin.
Yeah, but are they still? Would somebody still be born again but have lost their way, or would you say that they were never born again if they were to slide back into this sinful pattern?
That's a great question. This is another one of those issues that gets really debated of like, can you lose your salvation? I'm my personal where I'm at right now. I don't think that somebody can be. Um,
Once saved, always saved, baby.
I was
no,
going to
I
say,
don't know.
I'm thankful that my mom believes
We'll have to,
in
we'll have to put
saved,
a we'll have
always
to
saved.
put a pin in it because I gotta go. But
Yeah,
All right.
next time we'll
Thank you,
talk more
Brody.
about that. All right, thank you guys.
Appreciate that.
that actually
Brody.
contributes to my mother's well-being. Is the thought of once saved, always saved. So I'm glad that she believes that.
Well, I think this was fascinating. It was enjoyable for me to spend most of the time listening. I think the best I can relate to like the personal experience with God would be dreams that I've had that have affected me for long periods of time and maybe will forever. I'll give you an example. I have this reoccurring dream that I've had for as long as I can remember, where I go to this place. And this place is so familiar to me when I am in the dream that it feels like I'm finally home when I'm in the dream. The people around me feel like people who I wish were always there, or maybe I feel as though they are always there when I'm in the dream. I know everything so well. It's so familiar to me. If only I could tell you one damn thing about any of it. And what I mean by that is when I try to describe one face, one surface, one building, one anything of that dream, the aesthetics seem completely out of reach. Almost like I know it exists, but it doesn't exist. It's this really strange thing, but it's something that while I'm in it and a little bit when I wake up, I have this feeling of, oh, damn, I wish that wouldn't have ended when I initially wake up. So it's like, I consider that kind of dream state, that place that I go, to be something a lot different. And I know there are like, and again, like I have this within the dream, there are so many things I know that I cannot explain. And that's weird. It's incoherent to what I would consider good sound epistemology. But internally within me, I know this place. I know it when I'm there. I feel it when I'm awake. I know this place. But if I was to try to deliver any of that knowledge to you, it would just fail and fall apart. There is nothing to deliver to you. I can just make these proclamations about the experience without giving you any of the testimonial goods that would be of interest to an empiricist like myself.
If that's the case, would it be plausible to suggest that when you're in the dream during that moment, the visuals and maybe not the experience is the same where you feel like you're at home, but the contents of the dream are different? or is it usually the
It's-
same contents?
It's the exact same course of action. I'm pretty sure. Like I'm confident enough that I know this,
Okay.
that it's
Yeah.
the exact damn thing, same thing I do every time when I'm coming to this place. There's like, I know there's a doorway. If you asked me, what is that doorway I walk through? Couldn't fucking tell you. I know nothing about it right now, but I know
Gotcha.
everything about it in like an experiential layer, that when I am there, it's like I know it better than the back of my hand. So like,
Yeah.
like I know there are things moving around. I know there are faces that I see when I am there, that, but I couldn't tell you a thing about the faces. I couldn't tell you the race of the faces. I couldn't tell you if they're human faces, humanoid. I know their faces. That's something, I guess. But the amount of information is like it's so empty when I try to describe it, but it feels like I know everything about this place. But I know I don't know anything about this place from like a practical epistemic standard. My epistemic standard. But I still have the feeling
I have
of knowing.
similar
Yeah.
I have similar experiences with dreams. Like I talked to you guys a couple weeks ago. Like I had a dream where there was someone who I deemed to be God, but I can't really tell you anything about I'm pretty bad at recollecting dreams as it is. Probably a result of my constant dependency to weed. But so I think I understand what you're saying, where you know the faces, but you don't necessarily recollect how you got there, or like what epistemic processes that you would use. It's like a different
And the relationships with those faces are so meaningful that the feeling of that experience in the dream is like, it feels warm even thinking about it. So it's like, and I don't know if I go here every single night, and maybe some nights I
Right.
just forgot. I don't know if but I know that that I recall it frequently enough that it is just this reoccurring space I go to. And I've tried really, really hard, so hard. I've woken up from being in this place to whatever this journey is, or traveling to this place. I've woken up and I've been like, okay, and I really start trying to think about one thing, just anything, one thing about texture, about maybe eye color. I know there's a water fountain, or sorry, it's more like a waterfall that people like sit around. But like, I can't hear it. I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything, by the way, in this dream or space. I don't recall
Can I
ever
offer
hearing
some
anything.
advice? Can I offer some advice as
Yeah.
someone who I used to, sort of have this belief in dreams and like that they had meaning and stuff like that. And so when you have that, you try to work out ways to recall your dreams better. And this is something that works, is you get a notepad and lay by your
Oh, yeah.
bed. And
Yep.
as soon as you wake up, jot down any little detail that you remember
Yep.
about that dream. And eventually, as you build that little little notepad up, you
Yep.
will start connecting better memories with those dreams. And
I've done
you'll
that.
be able-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done that, Robin. Like I've done a lot of bedside journaling. Didn't help, honestly. Didn't help with
Really?
this. Yep.
But, like most people,
there is
And also, and I'm
incredibly-
not also, and just one quick thing, and I want to hear what Thomas has to say. There's also
Mhm.
like, I don't think there's any meaning in this dream. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not this thing where I'm like, oh, I wonder what this dream means. It's not. I'm just delivering to you the reality of the experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying this is a good method for doing recall.
Memory recall. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Thomas. What were you going to say?
So it's incredibly complex, but I'll give a general answer. In terms of predictive processing, neurobiology, and how we narratively reorganize and reconsolidate ourselves, we perform roles while we're awake and suppress reactions, delay emotions, and prioritize survival, and we choose restraint. But at night, these constraints relax on prediction, and prediction models loosen. Memory reconsolidates itself. This is a very important thing in neuroscience. And affect is replayed without social consequences. So the issue mainly is not about decoding this stuff. It's, but the unconscious does not speak conceptually to us. It speaks affectively. And then therefore, we feel that it's a felt sense. We feel it in our bodies. That's why it's so hard for you to describe, Travis, because dream is image, right? Movement, metaphor, atmosphere, and the felt sense of the body, because narrative is how humans integrate meaning before language. That's how we've always done it. So dreams don't explain, they restory.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it. That's the general sense of it.
Does anyone else, and thank you for that, Thomas, but does anyone else not have any like audio in their dreams? Like I don't have an internal voice, for example. Like most people, it's most common for people to hear their internal voice, like when they're thinking and whatnot. I do not have that. I don't have inner speech. It's called inner speech in cognition, and that translates for some reason to my dreaming as well, where I don't have audio in my dreams that I know of. But
I really never have audio in my dreams either, but that I can specifically remember someone speaking to me. A lot of it's more metaphor, imagery, movement, felt senses, stuff like that. And when you wake up, it seems as though those things stick. I never really remember anyone specifically saying anything to me. There may have been noises in my dream that I perceived, unconsciously, but I don't ever really remember anyone saying anything. So I'm right there with you in that sense.
Hmm.
I mean, you're making me question, because I believe, one, I certainly, absolutely, certainly believe I have an inner kind of monologue and voice. Like I'll be laughing to myself randomly, sitting by myself, because of the inner like monologue or dialogue or trialogue that I'm having with myself. You crazy person, you.
Do you hear it? Do you hear it, Perry?
Well, I mean, like, if by hear you mean like take in sound waves through my ears so that it hits my drums in such a way, no,
not in that way.
No,
but
yeah, like I can attribute
like
accents and like,
oh yeah, like see that to me is fucking alien. That's alien. That is alien. That is alien to me. I talked to when I had Noam Chomsky on my podcast, I talked to him about this specifically. I wanted to talk to him about it, and I can't quite remember what he said, but in my mind, and I'm just and I think this is relevant to today's topic because we're talking about these experiences. Brody's first experience, he said, happened in his dream, and then he attributed it to God. But I just I know not having inner speech is very rare, but it's weird to me. I wonder how different my experience is because I have it's literally nothing. It is nothing. There's nothing. Yeah.
So like when we like, okay, surely you recollect. I mean, it's almost like I want to say that you don't have any memory. That'd be a funny. But like you recollect, obviously, like Family Guy scenes.
I can't hear it. And here's the thing.
So you don't hear Quagmire
when
saying,
I think of
Peter,
let's go to the Klan.
Here's the fucked up thing. Like my mother's voice, Peter Griffin's voice, everything, I could mimic it to you like a fucking parrot would. But when I try to think of Peter Griffin's voice in my head and try to hear it, this is after watching thousands of hours of Family Guy. Nothing. I have the information to be able to
know already that this. Sorry, really quick. This is something that is studied in science. I can't remember the terminology for it, but there is, like the lack of inner voice. It also matters in dreams and like being able to like symbolically and sonically represent it in your own head. This is actually a thing that's studied. I can't remember the damn name of it right now, but I'll have to look it up later. Anyway, you're not crazy.
Well, that has to be the case, though, Thomas, right? Because otherwise,
he is crazy. Yeah,
otherwise, how is it? Is it that Travis doesn't think before he speaks, or like does he not think about what he's going to say?
No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not. So if we study this, maybe we'll do an episode on this. But I've looked at this. The best way I can describe it is I am dealing with the information.
Right.
So there is no like deliberating voice in my head like, oh, should I do this, should I not? Like hearing accents. Like when I read a book, here's the back of here's the instructions for this this audio interface. When I read this in my head, I am taking in the information, but there is no voice. Like if I read Harry Potter, so the typical thing is when someone reads Harry Potter, the typical thing is for them to attribute like voices, accents, and different things to different characters. This will just naturally start happening. But for me, it's completely deaf, blank, nothing. It is
maybe you're like
just
Helen Keller
information.
reincarnated.
No, but it's a real phenomena. Not having inner speech is a real phenomenon.
Anendophagia, coined by researchers to mean without inner speech. This word is ANENDOPHASIA, is the specific absence or near absence of an internal monologue. People with this condition do not speak to themselves using words, sentences, or even running vocabulary, verbal commentary in their minds. Instead of processing thoughts linguistically, they think using unsymbolized thinking, pure abstract concepts, ideas, or immediate intuitive knowing, emotions. They don't use emotions or visual imagery. So there's no symbolism attaching to the sonic nature of your thoughts.
Right.
That's
That'd be evidence for Platonism.
Yeah, there you go. So, according to a study from the University of Copenhagen, individuals with may have slightly more difficulty with verbal working memory and rhyming tasks.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever had that issue.
So and of course, when I look at aphantasia here, it says typically accompanies vivid visual imagery. So my visual imagery memory.
Oh, there's the difference, Travis, really quick.
The
one that I said is no inner voice. The one that you said is no inner ear.
Oh.
Yes. So, the one you said is the broader inability to voluntarily imagine any sounds, music, to voluntarily imagine any sounds, music, or voices internally. It is effectively blindness of the mind's ear.
Yeah. So yeah, blindness of the mind's ear. That's a very good way of describing it. So when here's another thing. I'm a musician, and a singer. When I think of Benny and the Jets, which I've played live hundreds of times and performed it, and I could be blindfolded, sit down at a piano and play and sing it. When I try to hear that song in my head, nothing.
Oh, it literally says exactly what you're talking about. It literally does. Says the experience beyond just lacking an inner self narrator. The one that I said, the anendophagia, is the no inner voice. This one says someone with, I cannot pronounce that word, cannot replicate a loved one's voice, imagine a dog barking, or recall what a police siren sounds like. Exactly. They also do not experience getting songs stuck in their head. Do you have that issue?
Well, I don't get songs. Well, you know me, Thomas. When I get like
Yes.
a song, a piece of lyric, I will just repeat it like a motherfucker over
Me
and
too.
over and over again. But it's not that, like, it's that I am being compelled by other faculties, not because it's stuck in my head. I've never understood that concept of, like, someone's like, oh, I got a song stuck in my head. It's just, it's stuck and it's causing me to. But no, there's nothing in my head in
Interesting.
that way.
It looks like you have a very specific, specialized mixture between those two, that you can do some of those things, but you can't do. So, like, it seems as though your inner ear and your inner voice don't work the same as other people. That's cool.
So
You know what I mean? That's
yeah,
cool.
aphantasia. So, like you were just reading, is the inability to voluntarily generate mental. That's visual. That one's
So
visual
that's the
imagery.
third. It says both of these conditions that you described and I described, the inner ear and the inner voice, both of those conditions frequently co-occur with aphantasia, which is the inability to create voluntary visual images in the mind's eye.
Right. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's so foreign to me because I do like the majority of my learning through my inner monologue. So
yeah, so that is like when people tell me about their experience, they're like, yeah, I have a voice in my head. I'm like, what? What does that sound like? What is that like? Like, I have never in my life, based on like I've never experienced something like that. I just don't.
It sounds like you have a very specific kind of auditory aphantasia, or that word that I can't pronounce, anoralia. You read it a second ago.
Can you send me that word, Thomas? Because I
Of
keep
course I
trying
can,
to
yeah.
search for it, and I can't.
No, it's
find
okay.
it.
We'll give you this real quick. I'll put it in the side chat for everybody.
Casey says that's like half of what's going on in my head. So this is what my wife tells me. This is what everyone else tells me. They're like, because they've tried to like ask me questions about this. Like, when you're like sitting there thinking about something, because my wife sees me all the time, like going off into the distance, like, and she knows when I'm thinking about something hard. It's like, what are you hearing when you're doing that? And I'm like, nothing. There's zero. There's no relationship to hearing anything, but I'm thinking very, very hard.
They're both in the chat.
Oh yeah, let me.
They're both in the chat.
What is that? Because for me, it's like an inner, like I'm thinking of the words as I'm going through, and I also, like, if I have a song stuck in my head, I am hearing that song, and it's just on loop sometimes.
That is
me too.
That is so strange to me. It's just so strange. It doesn't feel.
I love it.
I can't even. Yeah, of course. Like I understand how that would be probably helpful.
You're just cognitively rigid. You're not listening.
Yeah, you're just not listening carefully enough.
Yeah, he's not trying hard enough.
Yeah, so people with anendophagia, generally do not experience silent conversations with themselves, mentally hearing their own voice, rehearsing sentences internally before speaking. That's the one people talk to me about. They're like, rehearsing sentences internally before speaking. My speech just comes out of me. I've never in my life experienced rehearsing sentences.
Because you don't need that symbolic layer. It's just going straight from pure abstraction, which is fine. You know what I mean? It doesn't filter through. Yeah.
Instead, thinking.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of people whose mouth actually works with before it goes. I'm not accusing you of this, Travis. You do pretty good job. There are a lot of people who seem to, like, their mouth runs.
Yeah, but Travis clearly doesn't think about what he's going to say before he does it.
They should, like, some of them should maybe consider, like, thinking.
Yeah.
Running it through the brain first.
Right.
It's basically your process. You know, you're not processing them with, you're using unsymbolized thinking. That's the thing. Pure abstract concepts or immediate intuitive knowing. That is a thing studied in neurobiology and neuroscience, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it just seems as though you don't, especially like with sonic things, you don't have any symbolism around that.
Is there any brain scans that they can use to detect that?
Well, I mean, it says
Like-
here, neuroimaging studies show that when most people imagine a sound, the brain's secondary auditory cortex, which is very important to learn, guys, and supplementary motor areas light up. For those with that word I can't pronounce, this automatic internal simulation does not occur or rise to conscious awareness. It may be happening, but it is not entering the ventral the prefrontal cortex and everything in the same way that it is for like me and Casey when we actually hear the music in our heads.
Thomas, that word you sent me.
Yes.
I'm looking at how do people with anendophasia think. So it says here, wow, this is cool. It says here, instead of sentences, cognition may look like visual thought, mental images, diagrams, scenes. So I do think in scenes.
Yeah, you don't have full aphantasia. It sounds like you got the auditory one, the no inner ear parts.
Yeah, anendophasia, I think. So and
when that's the first one, that's the no inner voice. Sorry. So which one are we talking about?
No, I'm talking about anendophasia right now. So when it comes,
that's the no inner voice. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me go through this. So I went through the visual part. Now listen to this: conceptual thought. So, the conceptual thought is more direct understanding, abstract relationships, immediate recognition. Motor thought related more to imagining movements, bodily stimulations. Emotional thought, feelings without words. Spatial thought, geometric relationships, location, structures. Many report simply knowing something without mentally saying it. Yeah. That's
when I was speaking a second ago, and I said unsymbolized thinking with intuitive knowing. That's what that is. Immediate intuitive knowing.
I feel like I do that as well. Like as a basketball player, I always think in parabolas and geometries and like all of these things that I don't necessarily need the inner voice or dialogue.
It's not saying that, other people don't do this.
Yes,
but it's saying
people are going to be on a spectrum of all of these. That's the whole point, is that it's not making it to the full prefrontal processing that Travis would. So he's bypassing that. You understand what I'm saying? So like you were taking into those accounts those things, and his is basically cutting out that noise, and it's not processing symbolically. That's what I'm understanding. So
yeah. So like semiology isn't like a thing that you do within your cognition.
Well, it has to. I mean, yes, we have to have semiotics in there. We wouldn't be able to say anything. But like, in terms of, it's just about abstract conceptualization rather than attaching symbols. So like how Travis says, I just have the information and it just comes out. There's no symbol filter there for him to have to process.
Yeah. So, and also when it comes to like knowing where this comes from or knowing other neurocorrelates or other ways of detecting, it's really in its infancy studying this.
So it seems, yeah.
And it's not.
They only have what it's saying here, and only neuroimaging studies, relatively recent. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because if I think of something that you've said, Travis, I hear your voice saying it. When I think of something Perry has said, I hear Perry's voice.
I was just going to say, Robin, I'm glad he doesn't, because I have such a dog shit voice, and it's good that he doesn't have to
but I mean,
recollect that.
Yeah, whoever that I heard that, whoever might have said that to me.
Yeah, Don's voice.
Like I can hear people's voices in my head perfectly.
Now
I can hear men's voice. I can look at men's face on this picture. And hear
when I close my eyes and try to, like, I could mimic Min's voice for you, like just like it's coming out of my like authored speech, right? But when I try to hear Min's voice in my head, there is nothing. There's
no symbol filter.
There's nothing.
There's no symbol filter, which
zero.
Means nothing to sonically attach to. You know what I mean? Like that's that's why you can still play music just fine. Also, when it said about geometric, your movements on the keyboard and stuff like that, whenever you're playing the piano and everything, that's all geometric, right? So like your brain doesn't have to process the sound symbol the same way as other people. That's actually kind of a superpower in a way, in some ways, I guess. But yeah, you're not having to process that layer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what else they study about this, because I know like 5 years ago I tried to find information on this, and there was way less information than there is now about this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, neurobiology and study into that has come an insane way in the last 5 years. So.
Barry says that doesn't make any sense. It means you have no memory of someone's voice. Well, recallable memory. So there would be a difference between whether or not I have the memory, because I feel like the memory is there, but I can't fucking hear it. But I think the memory is there, Barry, because I can act it out. I can impersonate anyone's fucking voice right now. So I think the memory is there. It's just my ability to hear it in my head. It's empty. It's there's nothing. It's silence in my head.
Your temporal lobe is all screwed up.
What Perry said earlier about semiotics is correct.
I've had multiple MRIs, like the highest and CT scans with contrast dye because of my concussions I've had through hockey, and yeah, like they were trying their best to find like what was fucking me up at that time when my panic disorder was emerging and shit like that. And they thought that I had some kind of brain disease, but they ruled that my brain was perfectly healthy. There was no like abnormal things they could see. Yeah, very debatable.
Barry may be correct. You might need to go into your settings and enable this in your settings.
I don't even know how that would cause a problem for anyone, as long as if they're not processing symbolically that sonic layer and it's not going to the I don't see like there would be any problem either way. Because you still play music just fine, right? You still play hockey just fine. You still can hear.
And all of my music, for the most part, my piano playing, and I've been playing piano since 3 years old, was nearly all learned by ear. So I'm a by ear player. So music has come to me that way. But like I'm telling you, I have near perfect pitch. Like I've been tested for perfect pitch. Like I know that like da da da, that was CBA. Like I
was gonna ask you that earlier. Like,
but until your vocal cords put it out, your brain isn't necessarily processing it internally. The symbols of what would attach for you to be able to hear that symbolically in your head is what I'm gathering. So that doesn't stop the transmission of the information back and forth in terms of input and output, though.
Maybe they're going to find they're going to find one day. Maybe they're going to find one day that like this is direct evidence of psychopathy.
There you go. There you go.
Well, I started laughing when you said like brain disease, because I mean that's just funny. Like even if you don't have brain disease, having to be tested as to whether you have brain disease or not is pretty funny. I mean, as long as you can recollect what your interlocutors are saying, even if you can't because that's what I do, right? I kind of have like this background mimicking of what someone is saying, and sometimes I can just figure,
that sounds like torture to me, Perry.
Because
I love to have this silence in my mind when I'm interpreting information and hearing information. Like, and it's
sometimes
literally
I
just
can't
science.
do both things, right? Like sometimes I'm high as shit and I'm really just picking up like 30% of my interlocutor sentence, hoping that I can make out what he's saying. But as long as it doesn't affect the your ability to think for yourself, you don't want to just like listen, right?
It is really weird that whole thing where I can, because growing up and still to this day, like I'm known amongst all my friends who've known me my whole life as kind of a parrot, in that like I can impersonate like pretty to a T anyone who I really want to impersonate. And it's but yeah, that's more to do with the information coming out of me in an accurate way. I'm just not hearing. Objective Ethics had a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. I didn't want to be rude and just jump right in, but I did have a couple of just quick questions regarding this. One of them would be what your position on hard determinism is, when you talked about speaking without necessarily running your thoughts, what you're going to say through your prefrontal cortex. The other question I would have is, have you had and something that you can recollect from your past where you've been in a very high stress situation
Yeah.
And you get this audible voice that says, hey, you gotta do whatever the situation might call for. And then because for example, I had a kayaking incident where I was trapped upside down. I had lost
Ooh.
my paddle, so I couldn't get myself rolled over. And I was, my head's bouncing off the rocks and I'm struggling and struggling in it. Like, it was running out of air. And it was, one of my last thoughts was like, okay, I'm
Damn.
running out of the ability to start thinking clearly because I'm getting ready to drown here. And I decided that I was going to make the decision to die in peace and not die struggling, right? And panicked. So I just made that decision. And at that point, yeah, the crazy thing about that, just to divert really quickly, is I've never experienced a sensation of peace and joy that can come even close to that. When you can literally face death, willingly, and and I mean, just there's nothing like it. I don't recommend people try it, but I'm just saying that there's no sensation I've ever, and I've done it all.
There's freedom in it. There's a lot of freedom in it.
There is indeed freedom in it, yes.
But the thing about it is, though, as I'm laying there now, just floating down the river upside down, accepting my fate, I heard this incredibly loud, audible voice that says, "Daniel, if you don't fucking flip this boat over, you are gonna die." And I gave
that
it one more
is
good
so
effort,
crazy to me that you heard that voice.
Heard it like it was yelling. Like, I mean, it was almost like it was like when you're a kid and your father or your mother, you get that, your fucking ass is grass,
Right.
whatever it is you're doing, like you can hear it around the corner. If you're a block away, why are you not in this house? It's dinner time or whatever it is. Yeah, I heard this voice. It was like a booming voice, and it snapped me out of this state of complete ecstasy. Like I said, I was just literally just kind of just accepted my fate and was ready to go. And I was thinking about my wife and my little dogs and how I turned my life around and all my successes and everything that I wanted to think positively about to keep myself I want to die in a good mood, And then I just heard this voice, boom, if you do not flip this boat over, you are gonna drown, And I was like, fuck, I better give it one more good go. I caught a lucky wave, and obviously I'm here today. But I was curious if you have a story like that. Like, I don't know if you were in the military or a high stress situation.
So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of high stress trauma from when I was very little and through important development years. So, without going into details on that, I mean, maybe when they discover more about this, maybe there's some kind of genetic predisposition reason for this, where maybe if you're under a significant amount of stress or trauma or anxiety or something when your brain is developing, maybe there's a reason why the inner speech doesn't develop. That's an interesting question. The first part, I am a determinist. Whether it's determinism or indeterminacy, in the sense of if we roll back the clock to, stay, the Big Bang, and it bangs with the same velocity, like the exact same velocity, and all things being equal, we will see the exact same outcome, whether it's that or the indeterminacy picture that deals more with the probabilistic outcome. That I'm not so sure about. Like, I kind of have this, if I had to place my bet between the two, I would place my bet. I think that reality at more fundamental levels, like I'm more of the Stephen Wolfram rule, that of finding like basic linear answers that would solve the probability probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics that we see. But like, yeah, I'm a determinist. But I wanted to say, like, Barry asked, when you hear a song in your head, what voice is it in? I've never heard a song in my head that I can recall. Never. And again, as a musician, that might sound weird, but like, yeah, if I sit down and I act like I'm playing the piano, like, hey kids, shake it loose together, the spotlight's hitting something that will change the weather. We'll kill the fat and cough tonight, so stick around. I'm not thinking of like the notes, the key, the anything. I have the muscle memory of the piano. It's yeah, and then if I try to hear in my head what I just sang, if I try to hear Benny and the Jets, like Elton John's original version, I I can't
Go full
I can't
blown.
hear it.
Yep. Sound and language and all that are at a certain layer in symbols in our brain. And then at a lower layer, there's just pure abstract concepts or intuitive direct knowing. And so it seems as though you're not hitting those layers.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a weird thing. It kind of freaks me out a little bit when when we talk about it, because I can't remember if I've ever met anyone who doesn't have inner speech. Like, it seems like this is a pretty rare thing.
Yeah, I wonder how rare both of those conditions are together, and also the third of the mental image.
Yeah, I asked my system how rare it is, and it says we don't know how rare it is. Like, that's why it's just not because it's not a disorder. It's not something that gets a lot of funding and attention, and it's just an observed phenomenon.
Well, you mentioned your childhood trauma being one idle speculative possibility. I mean, you played hockey. Doesn't take but one shoulder to the temple to cause a significant change in your cognition. I don't know how long as long as you can remember type of thing.
As long as I can remember, like I can remember, like I remember, like, maybe when I was maybe around grade 6 or 7, some other kid brought up, like, yeah, it's like that voice in your head that you talk to. And I was like, man, you're crazy. And then other kids were like, well, we all have a voice in our head. And I remember the teacher saying that, and I was just like sitting there like, yeah, maybe they mean just like when you're thinking about information or whatever, or you're able to recall information or regurgitate something. But
I mean, I can hear like music and stuff in my head, but I don't have a voice that talks to me, or I talk to it, or like hear other people talking to me as voices in my head.
Right.
So
yeah, it's weird, but it's weird to think of what it would be like to have noise in my head. That's a very scary thought for me, actually.
I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult. Just watch any of your videos of you critiquing Matt Dillahunty or something, and then imagine that's what's going on when you're processing the information the way that you do.
Yeah, that is Perry. That is so hard for me to imagine. I've tried to imagine, like, actually having a voice in my head. It's just more alien than anything, it seems like.
Well, the worst part is that when the voice in your head like wants to argue with you. Actually,
I'm sure Perry would say that he has
so
argued
fucked
with
up. So wait a second. You guys have voices in your head that argue with you, or will say like, don't say that thing, or like that is fucking like, I'm telling you right now, when I tell you that I have 0, that is like, it's just hard to believe. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, I don't hear multiple voices, but I have a
I'm not saying multiple. I'm just saying,
like, I have a voice in my head that like it talks to me, so it's my voice, but it talks to me. But sometimes, like, what I'm thinking and what that voice is saying don't agree with each other. Like, it'll be like, no, you need to.
I can give a great example here. We all know our friend Moloch. Yeah. Moloch will like sometimes just riff and spitball, and then he'll start like second guessing himself, and he'll be like, well, I guess it could be the other way. And that's similar to what my monologue does when I'm trying to figure out whatever the best route may be, or something will come up and I'll be like, oh, what about this? And then be like, yeah, what about that?
Wait, what is that voice? What is that? Your own voice in your head that you're hearing, or is it a different, like, someone?
No, it like
Oh
someone
my god,
mentioned
this is freaking me the fuck out. This freaks me the
well,
fuck out.
I mean,
I'm serious.
I have enough like free will to where I could do the Quagmire voice. Someone mentioned Don Don earlier. I love having Don Don as the voice. I mean, I feel like I argue with him pretty well, and so maybe naturally I just have like Don, or all of your voices. I'll try out, but I guess like there's a generic voice that like.
What do you mean
I
generic
mean,
voice? Please try to
yeah,
describe that to me.
yeah. Relax. Like, it's no nothing particular. Like, I can attribute the accent or the Quagmire voice if I want to. Sometimes things are like a lot quicker than that. Sometimes I will just do the processing the information quickly, but when it comes to more of like a narrative, like maybe deeper philosophical thing, or I'm thinking the humor in my head, like a funny joke that could come up, like that's what I'm doing. Like the more long form monologue. I mean, I can't. I have trouble describing voices in general. Like Thomas has a like sweet voice and like soft and can be quicker on pace than average. So I mean, it's just it could be any description of the monologue voice.
Like having an aneurysm right now, trying to figure this out from you.
Yeah. And Rob,
I mean, he's listened to dialogues before. Like he's just too much of a physicalist to like not dive into his own subjective inner log.
I seem to have a voice that shows up all the time in my head. It just pops in all the time.
How about this? Ayn Rand.
Existence.
What if, like, hang on. What if someone, like, are there people who can't stand the sound of their inner voice?
Oh,
yeah. That'd be a hell, right? Yeah, I mean, people hear voices. You agree that
or something inside your own head? That'd be rough.
Well, I mean, I don't like to hear my voice on a recording, so like it is annoying in my head sometimes too.
So, Robin, you hear your accent, your voice in your head.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, except for like.
wait a second. Wait a second. You wait 1 second. You said pretty much. What the fuck does that mean?
Well, I mean, because if I think of something Perry said, I will hear Perry say it. Like if it's something you say, I will hear you say it. You know what I mean? Like if I'm recalling something, like right now, like I can perfectly recall men saying, "So Perry, do you think that this objectifies this or something?" You know what I mean?
So
right,
Thomas,
you're doing it.
So Thomas.
Yeah, there you go.
So
yeah,
Thomas.
I can hear men's voice perfectly saying that. So like I can have other people's voices, but like when I'm in my own inner dialogue, when I'm talking to myself, it's me, I guess.
Here's a test. Like I just did that. I did Min's voice.
He's testing us. Like we're the ones who have the crazy.
No. Listen to this. I say Min's voice. So Thomas. And then right away, I try to think about that in my head to try and hear it again. I try to test it.
Yeah.
So Thomas. There's nothing. There's just no ability.
I understand. Yeah. I get it. I mean, you go full retard. Like
it's all right.
Okay, Perry's missing the point. He's too autistic to.
There you go.
No, I do understand. Like I can do my best to like, because I also do the processing of the information, like kind of the more abstract type of things, and so I can understand doing that and having your own like categorizations and whatever it is the fuck that you do when hearing Min's voice, rather than like what I would do maybe sometimes is replay Min's voice in my head after he says something.
Right,
So,
but you're talking about something you actively do, right?
Is
like
it
when
automatic?
You say you do, like, are you talking about automate? Like,
no.
Yeah.
But I'm both of those. The first one being like kind of the processing of information. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could probably consciously No, yeah, that's a good question. But I was thinking more automatically. And
Well,
then the second one where I'm like mimicking, that's me doing it. But the
That's-
first one I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that's another question is like, is anyone actively engaging with their inner speech?
Yeah, it seems like it, right, on the macro experiential level. Of course, I too am a determinist and don't believe that these thoughts are ultimately coming to me, even if it seems like I can do the logic chopping. But that's what matters to me, is that it seems like I can do the logic chopping and dialogue, trialogue in my head.
Kelly on YouTube says music plays in my head about 50% of the time, like literally in your head.
I feel that.
Yeah.
So like 50% of your life, music is playing in your head.
I agree with her. It's about the case for me as well.
Holy
yes.
shit.
That gets annoying though. Like that, sometimes I get a song stuck in my head and I'm like, all right.
I mean, literally a moment ago when y'all were talking, I was literally hearing songs in my head that I've listened to today, like as if they were playing. So
Everyone, all of you are aliens, and I'm not.
You're a mutant.
That's the only
You're a
answer.
mutant.
Yeah.
Mutant.
It's kind of like having elevator music playing in the background all the time.
What?
I mean, like,
oh my fucking god, Robin!
It seriously
Are you serious?
is kind of like that,
Are you
especially with
serious?
like. Yeah.
I don't have the constant music unless I get like an earworm. You know what I mean? Like if a song gets in my head that
Yeah, it gets stuck in your head.
One of those songs, and you just like keep on doing it all day long. Like I will sometimes get stuck on that, but like in general, like mine is not constantly playing music. No.
I mean, I think in music, so it's natural for me to just constantly hear that kind of stuff. But like that's just how it works in my head.
That is wild.
Yeah. I mean, I'm omni-audient, right, Robin? So
yes.
I'm stuck with the external monologue, the internal monologue, no matter what.
12 crazy, insane people inside your head all the time.
You're probably hearing mine.
Yeah. Yep.
That would really be the part that would be crazy is if you were stuck with not just your own inner monologue, but you could hear everybody else. Wasn't there a movie where somebody did that and he could hear everything that people were thinking?
Yeah, Bruce Almighty.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, Travis, I can hear Elton John in my head singing Benny and the Jets if I want to, like clear as day.
That is such like a, I don't know, man. That is just, I don't know how to describe it. It just sounds like super, like let's bring Brody back to talk about the supernatural.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah. Rocket Man. I can hear Rocket Man. Yeah.
Like
Rocket Man. Yep.
Burning out a fuse up here alone.
Yep.
I hear Robin often, whenever I say like a Christian, I'll always say Christian. Or when I say billionaire, I'll say billionaire.
Please say milk. Say milk.
Milk. I drove a milk truck.
Milk. Does anyone else actually, Min, are you there?
Min?
Yeah, I'm here.
No way, Min is not here.
Do you have an inner voice in your head?
Yes, I do.
And what is it? Can you describe it? Like how it works?
Well, it's like when I read a book, it's in my head. I hear myself say exactly how I sound right now.
In English or Vietnamese?
Either language.
Either language.
Okay.
And
yeah, so my tone is not the same.
What about when you read the voice of other characters? Like if you're reading Harry Potter and you're reading dialogue, is it always just in your voice?
It's in my voice unless like I'm really in tune with the character. Like
And then there could be variation.
Yeah.
Because people have told me that. I've heard that some people are like, yeah, if I've heard people use Harry Potter. I don't know why I always come back to that, but they're like, when I'm reading Harry Potter, it's like Harry's got this voice, Hagrid has this voice, and like internally, not like. outwardly
blowing your mind.
expressed.
I mean, have you ever listened to an audiobook where the narrator speaks in a different tone or accent of voice when he's reading different characters? That would be similar to what this phenomena that we're talking about is.
Mm.
You do it when you read Shakespeare. You'll read in a different voice, given a different character
out loud.
Out loud, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Stephen Fry does that too. Like when he reads the Greek myths and stuff, he sometimes does like if it's a woman, he'll do a feminine voice or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like he reads with different character voices.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
But it still sounds like Stephen Fry. But
right.
Yeah, I can sit here and think about Ian McKellen as Macbeth, saying every line in my head is as Ian McKellen.
Thomas, I can envision every fucking detail of Ian McKellen playing Macbeth. Every detail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a good painter, or I don't draw well, but if I could give you this snapshot in my head, it's like I'm watching it, like I'm watching the YouTube video I sent to you. I can see everything about it. But
you don't have that linguistic processing. Yeah, I
can see his mouth moving, saying tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day until the last syllable of recorded time. I can see his mouth. There's nothing. I can't hear it. Well,
yes, this is clearly the disconnect as to why you can't hear or remember your dreams, or that one particular dream. Seems to be whatever this phenomenon is going on with you.
But with that dream, why it's unique is that I can't remember anything visually. Like I know that place visually, but I can't fucking tell you about it. That's weird.
The same thing whenever I wake up from, like when I feel as though when I'm in a dream, if that's even the case, we can feel it. But like when I wake up, it's just contours and gradients and colors and things. It's just affect. It doesn't really have anything to do with. I can't. I mean, this just may be me, but I can't remember faces. You know what I mean, or things like that. It's always so abstract. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. Unless it's a dream about someone that I know, then usually I'm better at attributing a face to it. But yeah, can't remember faces that well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a dream about God. No, go ahead, man.
David, I'm curious. So speaking of dreams, like how would you feel about people who say that they become entrepreneur or a business owner based on the vision in their dream and they chase that?
Sorry, can you say that again? I lost some of what you were saying. Can you say that again?
The first one, yeah.
So some people, they say they become business owner or entrepreneur based on the dream of they have some kind of vision in their dream and then they chase that dream. Based on that.
That doesn't necessarily be about voices or anything, though. That could be the affect of feeling I will do well if I choose this path. Kind of thing, right?
I mean, like the I'm not sure I've had any dreams that I've woken up from. Well, actually, I mean, I could say what I mentioned on a podcast I went on recently. Someone else had me on as a guest, and I mentioned to them that probably like one of the best songs I ever written was like I awoke zombified out of my sleep. I still don't know to this day what I was dreaming about, and I sat up out of bed almost like a zombie, as though I was still kind of like sleepwalking. Walked right over to my piano, turned on my piano's digital Yamaha piano, and I played okay, well F C G D minor chord progression, and I was delivering, it felt like, information from what was just happening in my dream. I played that out a few times. I grabbed my scrap pieces of paper. I wrote down, I think it was 4 separate verses, full verses of lyrics, including the chorus, almost like I was a conduit from whatever the fuck was happening in my brain while I was dreaming. I wrote it out. I went and sat down at my computer and laid out a really basic guitar track of that chord progression, and it's just repeated throughout the whole song. And I'll share the link for the exact song so you guys can hear what the final product was like. I turned on my recording equipment. I sat there, I pressed record, I recorded, I basically read, sang, and recorded the lyrics in one take. Put the lyrics obviously like on top of the music in my program, exported the track, then I went back to bed. This took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours in total. And then the end result was this song, Set Sail, that I wrote, and I still think it's one of the better songs I've ever wrote, and I'll share it with you guys here. But this is what my brain basically produced. It feels weird to take any kind of like work credit for it because of how weird that song came to me. Just like I woke up like Frankenstein, like being shocked back to life, and just did that and then went back to sleep. Yeah, I don't know. Like if your question, Min, is related to like, do you have dreams that like, and then you wake up and you pursue that would be like a direct example of that. But as far as like having dreams about pursuing like business purposes or things like that, I can't recall.
Would you consider that like poor epistemology if people do that?
No, that's not an epistemic thing. That would be like, inspiration comes to us from all different kinds of ways. Inspiration can come to us in our life, and then our sentiments will do that value sorting for us. And if the thing is valuable to us by way of our sentiments, then we're going to pursue it or accept it, or accept it as a good thing or something worth our pursuit. So no, I don't think it would be bad epistemology to allow a dream to inspire you towards something you find valuable. But yeah, I don't know, that the inner speech thing is weird. Yeah, and I don't know if that relates to the other thing, inspiration born of dream states. But well, maybe that's what I'll do for the stream here tonight. I'll play it off with my song Set Sail. Thanks to everyone who joined. It's now tavern time. We're all going to head down to the tavern and engage in only legal substances while we continue talking about whatever. And of course, in order for me to hear anything, it'll have to come out of other people's voices or my own, because I hear fuck all in my own head. But thanks to everyone who joined today. This is Set Sail by myself, Travis Pangburn.
Closing sail, everything must go, nothing left behind, no wild oats to sow. So out of my way, I'm done now. You see, you took the meat, but not my bones. Now throw away your key. 1 foot out the door, persistent. You are frozen in time. Oh, I love you slips out of my mind. So sail, set sail, a little bird. Just go and set sail. Set sail, set sail, a little bird. Just go and set sail. I'll take my ship away as the storm rolls in. I hope the wind is with me, and I hope you've learned that the pirate within me is sworn to the truth. Live or die by this rule. Something old and something new is the treasure within me. As sad as it seems, you will come to know what it all means to me. Set sail, little bird. Just go and set sail. Set sail, set sail, little bird. You just go now and set sail. Some pictures and some memories, ones I can't forget, on the crest of my black heart. You best not forget that the pirate never loses. He always collects one way or another. Now you can clear up all your regrets of the time you set sail with that pirate from the sky. You will remember him until that day that you die. Set sail, little bird. Now come on, just set sail. Set sail, little bird. Now I want you to set sail. Set sail, oh, little bird. Now I want you to set sail.